Let's roll.
We're from Camden, but we can register here, right?
Okay, you're up.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. I know this setup is a little bit unusual for you guys, but Jeff has been talking about this for a while, of trying to make it so that it's easy to broadcast and make it better for viewers. And because of the camera setup, it's set up to be aimed at that area. So switching, the way we were setting it up in a big kind of circle or square made it hard to really get people's faces, and the camera work was really difficult, so thank you, everyone. So I'm gonna go through my annual PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully, it's not gonna be the 40-minute version we've seen in the past, because it's just a lot about cutting. The overview of the budget, the budget is all based on, the challenges that we're facing. One of the big challenges is what's called the LD1 limit, or the tax cap. We're referring to it as the LD1 limit, which I'll explain later, but that was a big challenge in this year's budget. One of the things was trying to also meet the needs of the community going forward, making sure that we had the infrastructure in place, we're meeting this public safety needs and all of those things while we're building the budget. And also addressing our future needs, not just the needs of the town in this fiscal year, but looking ahead to the future fiscal years, so that we're not, backing ourselves into a corner and saying, okay, we're gonna do this, but we have no sense of what's coming in the future. And finally is, I'm really conscious about considering the taxpayer's ability to pay, to making sure that there's a balance there. It's not an unlimited well that we can just go out and tell people, here's what your tax bill is, and you gotta pay it. There has to be serious consideration to those factors as well, because we are a community that's made up of a diverse population and diverse abilities to pay taxes. So I know you guys have seen this part of the presentation before, but just for the viewing audience, how the budget is prepared. The budget process is pretty much, we're thinking about it year-round. It starts with department heads start to gather information throughout the year. We say, well, we didn't get it in the budget this year, but we need to make sure we make a note to get that in next year's budget. In December, we start to pull things together with the department heads. They start preparing their budget, pulling together all the information that they had. And then in January and February, that's when the crunch is on, and we do all our work then. And that's when it really gets difficult. Megan and I spent a lot of time locked in the same room, and I think she's wondering about her decision to make that change, the change she made. And we're in this step of the process now. The town manager is presenting my budget to you guys for you to look over and review. Excuse me. So some of the things I use in reviewing the budget is look at the debt we have and new debt we have coming. Because, for example, right now, this year, our debt is our debt payment will be about $38,000, but knowing that next year it's gonna jump to $100,000, because this year we're only paying the interest on the bond for the infrastructure bond. So that kind of thinking that beyond just this fiscal year, but to the next fiscal years, how are we gonna deal with those things going forward? The needs for this fiscal year and for the foreseeable future, how are we gonna meet those needs? What our revenues are gonna be, because there's several sources of revenue. Taxes are the big one, but then there's all kinds of other revenues that are coming in. And then what our undesignated fund balance is, and again, what the LD1 limit is. And then also, finally, the target mill rate is try to think about what are we gonna ask the voters for? So the needs for the future, as we start to look at this stuff, The number one thing on my list, and I think on the select board's list, is we have to deal with the library. We've gotta get that taken care of, we've gotta deal with that, and that's our big ticket thing, and we need to get that done. We need to also take care of making sure we have enough money and we plan for finishing out the infrastructure bond that we're working on now. I'm sure you're aware that the library has been painted, the storm windows are in, the heating system has been all updated. And over the spring, we'll be working on the controls for the AC system, which is, surprisingly, the controls for the AC system are a substantial chunk of money. But we are within the budget, and we're just outside of the budget, but we have a $50,000 reserve fund that we'll have to tap into a little bit, but it looks like we'll end up, after everything's done, not having to use a substantial amount of that reserve, which we thought we would end up having to use, but I think we're in good shape, so we're not gonna have to use that piece. And the other items for that infrastructure bond are hitting the papers, and this week, we've had pre-bid meetings on several of the roads, Summer Street, School Street, the Mill Street, the Mount Pleasant Street project has been bid out. That bid came in less than we thought it was gonna be, which is very nice. So that means ultimately we can do more work on Mount Pleasant Street and make sure that road is up to the best level we can make it. It's a dirt road, it's always gonna be a dirt road, but we can do some more work up there. This winter was particularly difficult there because, as the board heard, because with the freezing and thawing over the winter, it made it very difficult to plow. There were a couple times where Mike couldn't get up there and plow with the big truck because he was gonna damage the road by driving the big truck in there, and so it put a lot of strain on the small trucks to get up there and do that. Another project which is important to the board is the townwide fiber optic project. And the initial engineering piece of that is about $300,000. So that's a chunk of change to be going to the voters and asking for. But that has the potential to Rockport was already put on the map when we did the work that we did. And we need to finish that project. So we're in the process of doing that, but trying to figure out how to pay for it we'll be talking about that later as we work through the budget. Also, we've done very well with vehicle replacement schedules over the years, and that has helped us so that we've limited spikes in the budget by putting money away appropriately and taking money out. And we built a plan for how we can purchase most of our vehicles on a schedule. Public Works is in good shape now. The fire department is in good shape. The police department is in good shape. So that system of funding has worked very well for us. Also, another piece that has come to the forefront is the purchase of a piece of land over in West Rockport to be able to expand the fire station. There's a piece of land that abuts the town property there. And it's my feeling that any time a piece of land abuts a piece of town-owned property, we should look very seriously at that, no matter what our needs are. If it's a piece of land that abuts a piece of town-owned land, we should really consider, is that something we're gonna need in the future? So I don't know if folks are aware, but the fire station is the truck gets in there, but barely. I mean, the door, if it's not backed up perfectly straight, they can't close the door. If it's not backed in exactly where it's, but I think is less than 6 inches on either end.
A lot of grease.
Yeah.
A lot of grease on the sides.
You have to climb over the truck to get to the other
You're
side.
right. So, there's an opportunity for us to purchase the land directly next door at a very reasonable price, which will help solve that problem for the immediate future, and then potentially in the long-term future to give us a sizable lot on that intersection to be able to build a fire station, you know, in 10 years or 15 years, if the town decided they wanted to put in a major station there, they'd have the space to do it. So to try and explain the LD1 of the tax cap, it's basically, as we were talking a little earlier with Owen, so people understand, it was basically a law that was established about 12 years ago that was put in place to when our property values were going up so fast and so high and so fast that municipalities, you know, I've been in this business for 38 years and I know how it works. We were able to, you know, get all kinds of stuff bought and build and do things without having to raise the mill rate, you know, so we were able to do all this stuff. Well, when property values go down, we're still paying for all of that. So the law, its intention is a limiting factor to limit the growth of budgets to a portion of the total growth of the town. And in theory, it seemed like a reasonable idea at the time. You know, for those of us in municipal work, it was, you know, I don't know if we all agreed with it, but it was, you know, it's the law, and for me, it's what I have to live with. It depends on the manager. Some managers don't pay any attention to it. For me, I'm not the elected official, and I don't believe it's my job to do anything different than what the law requires without specific guidance from you or from the voters. So without that, it means that I have to meet that in building a budget. So it's basically the amount of tax we can raise. So our limit for this year is $3,376,914, and I'm going to explain how that is calculated. But that means that in order to comply with that number, that means we could only increase the budget $90,870. Well, that gets eaten up with just the cost of living adjustments, insurances, all the stuff that goes up. No matter, we have no control of it. That's just we blow by that by another 50% with just the things that we need to, you know, that we don't control. So, but I made difficult cuts, ones that I don't like, I'm not happy about making. I'm hoping you will look at those very carefully and put some of those things back in to meet that LD1 cap. As I said, you know, it depends on the manager, and some of it depends on the manager's trust in the elected officials. My sense is that you guys, you know, I trust your decision-making ability, and I'm putting it back to you. So to explain, I think that's the next slide, how it's calculated. I'm going to make it try and do this, and Carrie will like slap me upside of the head if I don't get it right. So the first step is to input in the form last year's limit, and that number is $3,286,000. So you put that in the form. And then the next step is, there's another confusing form here, where you add in this number right here. That's where you add in the town's, that's the growth, right?
Yep.
That's how much, where the zero is. So that's where you add in where the town grew. And typically, we grow every year. We have grow in taxable value. Is it like 10 million bucks typically, 10 million a year? Yeah, typically we grow, so typically we'd put in a number there, it would be $10 million. This year, we didn't grow at all. Actually, we dropped in value. We dropped in value by 60 million. So, but the law this talks about what growth we had. So this number is 0. As opposed to a minus number, because it's about a growth. This is a growth legislation, so I opted to say, you know, it doesn't calculate loss in value, and there's some backup to that with tax increment financing, which allows you to use not use a loss, it allows you to use, just a zero number. Yes,
It doesn't actually say that.
doesn't actually say
It
what?
doesn't say, put in your growth. It says.
Well, that's, the whole thing is about the growth factor. That's
Well,
the,
but that's not what it asks.
the the total new
Asks for-
taxable value.
It asks for the taxable value of property that was first taxed on April 15th of last year.
Oh,
Any
that's the
new
next number.
property-
That's the next number, right? I'm talking about this number. Oh, okay.
I'm
But that's
talking,
the-
I'm talking line two.
But that's the new growth, correct,
That's right.
Kerry?
What it says it's asking for is, if a
Don't turn that-
building,
don't-
if a building got put up, if a building got put up and
Yep.
wasn't taxed before, put that number here. Not did the town grow or shrink,
But we didn't have any growth, right?
no new buildings.
No.
No
We
split
don't-
buildings. And then in that case, it's zero, okay.
No new building.
Got it.
We don't have any new value.
Okay.
Well,
No new
Actually, I think,
subdivisions.
I think you're correct in how you're reading it English-wise, but I don't think that's the intent there. Typically, when we're asked a question like that, they're asking about the growth, not, I mean, yes, we had new parcels and new buildings, but we lost more than we gained.
A, I hate to be Antonin Scalia. And
Oh,
B, I hate to contradict you because you actually know what you're talking about and I don't. So I'm just gonna leave it alone.
But
Smart move.
But to go with you though, we entered a negative number to see what it would be, and the result was
No,
unrealistic.
you missed me. No, you missed me. For example, the new bakery attached to Ware was not there prior to April of 2015. That's an improved building, and it's been a building improvement since the last tax year, and that's what I read they're asking there is, what's the value now of something that was changed?
Because the question is geared toward growth. I think if you just read a total new taxable value and stopped right there, you'd have the correct sentence.
And
And that
personal
answer is
probably
zero.
first taxed on April 15th. I don't wanna
Total new
argue.
taxable.
I can't argue with you, Karen, because this is your
The
field,
piece
so.
of information that I think everybody needs to know
Yeah.
is that we lost a huge chunk when Brewster Point
Point
went
went,
from being,
right.
so,
I'm not
no
gonna-
matter
I'm not
how
gonna
much
continue
growth
with
we
it.
have
That's
of
not what
a bakery, it's gonna be offset by the huge amount that we lost from
But
that.
they're not asking for, they're not asking there for what's the
Yeah.
total value of the town, which is less.
the next
They're
is the
asking
total
for
value.
something that's happened that wasn't taxed last year. And let's just leave it right there.
Thank you. So then,
Yeah.
next is the total value of the town. And then the next line is the property growth factor, which is a calculation of dividing the growth of the town by the taxable value. Because we didn't have any growth, it's zero. So we enter a zero in there. And then this income growth factor line is a number we get from the state. I don't know how they calculate it, but it comes in from the state every year. Right. So then there's a calculation that spits out this number here, that, that's our growth factor, and then we add a 1 to it,
Right.
so that gives us another number.
Can you go back to super
I don't know
quick?
if I can go back to that. Okay.
In that typical year that we were talking about with the 10 million,
Yeah.
in a typical year, what would that number be?
It would still be very small, but
It would still be very
But it
small,
would be-
less than
but-
1.
But it would be higher.
But it would be a higher, it would be like a point
like
1
if it was
versus a,
0.2, it might be 0.4 something.
okay.
So then the other piece of it is we have to calculate in what what revenue sharing does, and this is kind of an odd calculation because we take it out and we put it back in. Is that what the deal is? Which is, and the good news is for Rockport is we don't rely heavily on revenue sharing. We never had a lot of it. We never relied heavily on it, and so our loss this year is only $3,000, not 300,000. That would be substantial. So bottom line is, when you're calculating the LD1 limit, there's our last year's number, there's our, that factor, right? And here's the new numbers. So there's the two numbers, the line one, multiplied by line 7 equals line 12, which is right here, equals this one. And that spits out this number down the end, which is $3,376,914. Thank you, Megan. So, this budget is really, typically we go into the budget and we talk about all the things that we added to the budget. This year, it's about how much we cut, where we made cuts, because that's where the big stuff is. I cut most deposits to reserve, which is painful. It's gonna hurt us. It's not good for us, because as you heard me talk about how we've done with our vehicles and all the other things, that's by making deposits to reserves. So that equates to $41,500. I cut large capital items. Those items are, so that the cuts to reserves, Megan's saying, hey, I pulled out all that information for you. Reserve cuts are the town office building, we cut $8,000, town office computer reserve, $5,000, police department vehicle reserve, $3,000, harbor float reserve, $1,500, harbor boat engine reserve, $1,500, public works reserve, $9,000, parks and rec reserve, $6,000, opera house building reserve, $1,000, cemetery reserve, $5,000. So then I cut large capital items from the budget that we had in there. The harbor block wall, which is a wall you've seen in the budget a couple of times, and we had it in again. That's the wall down where the boat storage is, and that becomes parking in the summertime. One of the plans is to push, to creep that banking of the hill back and clearly define a parking area down there so we can create actual parking and encourage people to park there. So I cut that. I cut the Plimo vent system that we've talked about a couple of times in the fire station. I cut the ball field backstop, which we've cut a couple of times before, which is the ball field out on the RES site. I cut a generator for the town office, which we met with a problem last year in one of the storms where we were out of power there. One of the challenges with the library, with the power at the Opera House, not the Opera House, town office now, is when we're out of power, that means that the fire station and police station, and everybody relies on the internet now. So it's one thing to not have power, but it's another thing for none of us get emails. All of our emails will all go down. So that cut, I cut that also. The floor refinishing at the Opera House, upstairs in the Opera House, that we've had that in the budget a couple times. That was about $10,000. That was cut out. Public Works building improvements, about $6,500. The harbor float improvements, another $3,500 I cut. The fiber engineering study, we had it in the budget, and it drove the budget up by $300,000. So that had to come, in order to meet LD1, there was no way of doing that with having that in there. So as much as I want to see it in there and as much as I want to put it back in, I couldn't have that there and get the budget down to meet that LD1. I cut the paving line also by $48,000, almost $49,000. And then other miscellaneous cuts of about $65,500. There's, small little cuts of $1,000 here, $500 there, $75 here and there, all of those cuts. So there was that total adds up to $561,000. So that's, what I went through. Keep in mind, $300,000 of that 561 is the fiber engineering. So there were a few areas of increase. Oh God, this is small. Workers' comp went up almost 50%. It went up almost $31,000.
Who controls that?
We have control, we have some control of it, and we're working on that now. Is that we can control it by, you know, proper training, making sure that it's based on our accident rate. And, you know, there's some steps we can take, and we're working on those now to try and get our rate back down. There's a bunch of work, things that we can do to make sure employees are properly trained, but it comes from the state. It comes from the Maine Municipal, I'm sorry.
How is it apportioned among the departments? Because I noticed that the departments that I think would be causing the most accidents, fire and police, in fact, have lower rates than other departments. So I'm wondering whether it's spread evenly or whether it's spread by cost.
It's spread out by percentage by their multiplier, multiplying factor. So it's whatever the multiplier is, they raised our rate in general, but in some departments, the accident rates are high, the potential for accident is higher. So they,
That's reflected in each department.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So, retirement, went up, $12,000, and that's something we don't control.
What does that acronym stand for? I'm sorry. PERS?
It's Maine Retirement System, I don't know what the P.
Public Employees Retirement System.
Thank you.
Health insurance went up, about 9%, that amounted to $15,000. Union wages went up per the two contracts, we're in the last, third year of those contracts, correct?
Correct.
So we'll be negotiating another one after this year, at the end of this year. Insurance, the projected insurance for the rest of our insurances for buildings and liability and all of that stuff is gonna go up about another, $5,000. Debt payments, as I said earlier, this is just for the interest rate. Just for the interest on the bond that we did is about $38,000. And our county fees went up another $77,000. So areas of increase in wages. So this is gonna be a very complicated formula. You don't have to pay attention to the whole chart. It's in your, is it in your book? It's in your book. But the area that's important is that area there. Basically, you know, everybody worries, there's a lot of concern, whenever you say the recommendation to give employees is 3%, that's a lot of money. For me, I like to focus in on how many dollars are we actually talking about here? What's the total dollars? And the difference between a 1% raise for employees and a 3% raise for employees is about $13,000. So we're not talking about, we're not gonna be able to balance the budget, do all that stuff on the backs of the employees that are, you know, they're one of our best assets. And you know, often that's what people do, they go after the raises for employees. And to me, to say to employees, you know, you're worth more than just the cost of living, even if it's just a little bit more than that. You know, to just be able to say, the cost of living is X, but you know what? You're important to us, and, you know, we're willing to give a little bit more than that. I think that goes a long way for them. They are one of our most important assets. We count on them to get our work done and be responsive to residents, and they do a great job, I believe, and it is important for us to take care of them. So that's another area of increase. When we talk about revenues, well, revenues are pretty stagnant. You know, we haven't seen a lot in the way of increases in revenues, and we don't expect that to change a lot in the next year. Excise tax is expected to remain about the same. Currently, we're ahead of where we have predicted, which is good, but it also can be very volatile and can change in a heartbeat. You know, there's some months where we think we're gonna get a lot of money in and it doesn't materialize, and then other months where you know, we're not expecting a lot of money, and all of a sudden, something happens, and people are buying new cars, and we get a lot of excise tax. And it's just for John, but I prefer to budget revenues conservatively low. So, and the projected loss of revenue sharing, as we talked, is pretty small, but the use of the reserve funds to pay for capital items, you'll see in the budget, there's some money, I guess it comes up in another slide, but there's been a downward trend in permits and planning revenues, a significant downward turn in that, because we haven't had any construction. So there's, our building permit fees are down considerably from the days when we were building like crazy. So the next item is the undesignated fund balance and what that means in the budget. Last year, we used about $110,000 from the UFB to reduce taxes. Did I call it undesignated? It's unassigned. The terminology keeps changing, and us old timers, we can't keep up with it. It's unassigned fund balance now. I don't know what the difference is, but I suppose it's something. So in this year's budget, one of the things I'm proposing in this year's budget is to use some of the UFB, about $150,000 of that, to help reduce taxes, a small amount of it, but to help cover the purchase of the land for the West Rockport Fire Station, because we need to do that. That will be an opportunity. If we let that slip away, that'll be an opportunity, you know, it'll be like the library not buying the piece of property that was next to the library that's been for sale a couple times.
Where is that in here?
It shows up in the West Rockport, on the budget for the West Rockport Fire Station. You'll see the land purchase there, I believe that's correct, right?
Public safety?
In public safety. And then it'll show as a revenue in there, out of UFB.
Got it. So that's 63,000?
No,
Page 104.
63,000, you say?
99.
It's 99,000, yeah.
99,000, okay. Sorry.
Also, to help cover the cost of engineering for the library. So the engineering, we don't have, you know, we're gonna have to pay for that engineering, and that's gotta get done. Now, there's a possibility that the library committee, the Friends of Library or the library committee may be able to help with that. But I've gone ahead and budgeted for what John Schultz believes is probably gonna be the cost. So, and I, you know, that's the things we need to be able to do. He's gonna ask, where is that?
Oh, the library?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, that's not my question.
Oh, okay. I thought I could.
Okay. So it's costing us 99 for the land, and we're using, of the 150, we're using 63,000 of that to acquire the land?
99,000.
There's a line in here that says use of reserve.
Right, the reserve's different than the UFB.
Okay, got it.
The UFB revenue is showed up in the special assessments, in the debt, county, and all other section.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So as of June 30th of 2015, our UFB had a balance of $2,196,000, which, if you heard the audit, the auditor said that is about 14.5% of our operating budget. So our UFB is pretty healthy. We're doing well with that. Yes, Jen?
The recommend is between 12 and 15%.
By charter, we're required to be 12.
Right, and the recommend is, we certainly don't want to be increasing past 15.
You
What I've always
could.
been given is the range should be between 12 and 15. And if we go to 13.5%, which is exactly halfway in between, we pick up an extra $81,683 to put onto the budget. Now, I think that being at a balance of halfway between our minimum and our lovely maximum is going to be safe enough
Yeah.
for the community.
And that's.
And that brings a lot of money back into the budget.
Right. Those are the decisions that you guys need to make. And that's a perfectly legit thing to look at. When we get down to that end, and we're trying to make the numbers work, how do we make that work? And as we all remember, when you get down to the end, it's, you're negotiating, trying to make the numbers work. Because I think we all are all looking for the same thing, or close to the same things, and that's how it's supposed to work, so. So this is a chart, it's in your book. It's a chart of what's our UFB has done over the period of the years. And so you can see, our UFB has basically continued to grow a little bit every year or we haven't gone down, which is a good thing. We are fiscally, we're in very sound shape, and I certainly don't want to do anything that would risk that. But, when we're not funding reserve funds and we're not doing some of those other things, there's a balance, and I mean, I'm confident we can get to the right answer. But I had to make those cuts to meet that LD1.
Question. Is this, with the ability for the select board to take action on that, are we actually going to explore trying to do budget negotiations, or do we just say, forget it, put it all back in?
That's what we do next Wednesday.
Next week.
Gotcha.
Yep. We're gonna sit here, the five of us, with him sitting over there, and we're gonna say, back and
Yes,
forth
no,
is
yes,
yes,
no,
yes,
no,
no,
yes.
wait, no, this one should be halfway between those two numbers, or we want you to cut this one a little deeper.
Or that's you're gonna.
That's us, that's what we do.
Okay.
Then we'll look at it and send it back.
Yes, Stevie?
A little slow on the uptake here. Back on the cuts in terms of what Jan said, and I remember just because we spent so much time on it last year, the fire station, the air and that, how
Fun with that.
much is that? That was a capital expense,
29,000, I think.
How much?
29,000.
and it's cut completely
Yes.
Yes, and that's the only safety thing that was cut.
for
Well,
the third
I
or
mean,
fourth
to-
or fifth year.
To put it in perspective, I mean, it is something that we should be looking at, but we don't have anybody that lives in the fire station, there's nobody that sleeps there, there's nobody that sleeps in the police station. Typically, it's not, a more serious problem in my mind is the Public Works garage, where the guys actually live. When there's a big storm, they're living there. But my guess is that we may be looking at upwards of $100,000 to do that building. And that one, the guys actually sleep, and Sue actually works there during the day. Now granted, when they open up the doors, all the air gets changed, but that's one that, is another one that needs to be
Have we
looked at.
ever done a study to see what it would cost
To do that,
to rent that building?
to do that one?
Yeah.
Not that one, no, not yet. So, that's my part of the
40 minutes.
you had too many questions, I don't control the questions.
Oh, no. 5 minutes better than last year.
Oh, you need
Okay.
the mouse?
Should we ask them now, or should
The
we?
school?
That'd probably be a good time to do the LD1 questions.
What's
Yeah,
the
if
other
you-
one mean?
Okay, yeah,
Legislative something one, it's a law, public law.
Directive.
so
Yeah,
there are a
lots of
couple things I
directive,
wanna
okay.
make sure everybody knows about LD1.
Okay?
So what happens if we exceed LD1? If we just say, oh, we forgot to fill out that form this
Yeah,
year?
good point, thank you for asking that.
Like, do they fine us $5 million
No.
for?
There-
The best part, this is the best part, it's so great, wait for it. Wait for it.
The law never had a lot of teeth in it anyways. There was never, I don't believe there was even any, it's just a lot of finger pointing. And as Kerry did some research, it turns out that historically, municipalities have been pretty good about following LD1. School districts are not.
That's what I was gonna ask.
We're
School
pretty
dist-
much exempt.
Yeah, the school district, they've exempted themselves. And also, many towns, as we've gone through this and they've seen how ineffective this has been, many towns have, as a matter of course, they automatically, as part of town meeting, vote to give this authority to override the LD1 limit. And it's just a matter of, it's one of those housekeeping warrant articles that they put in, which is allowed by law, that you can do that, and that you just vote to override it.
No, do the best part about where you send.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, well,
Best part.
yeah,
We
yeah.
fill out all that paperwork.
Who do you
What
send
we
it
do
to?
with it?
It used to go to the state planning office, and they would track it and print out a report, and that was pretty much the end of it. Today, we fill out the paperwork, we take it over, and Kerry goes to a drawer in his office, right? And puts it in the file.
It doesn't go anywhere else.
It doesn't go anyplace
I
else.
looked and asked Gary's help to look for a list of towns that violate it, and so, it
I'm asking this question.
does not
Apparently, the
exist.
people we were supposed to submit it to no longer exist.
Exists, right?
So,
State planning
That
office-
was the best part.
I know, that's why I'm asking the question.
The state planning office no longer exists in its current form, and so there's no place to send those things.
Okay.
This comes up every year at the Legislative Policy Committee over at MMA.
But we-
And every year we say, well, you know, it really
And the
has no
schools
teeth.
don't
Why
have
are
to
we
follow
keeping
it.
it around?
Nope.
And because they say it's a good knuckle drill. You know, it gives you an incentive to try to hold on to
Which
where it is.
Yeah, I get that. I
But,
mean,
you know,
I don't-
as he said, there's some towns that have never paid any attention to it.
My question
And
is,
it's
The-
12
the
years
thing
old,
is-
from what I hear. 12 years.
somebody
Yeah,
sue the town
if
for
we don't do it.
violating the law and stop our budget practice and make us pay the lawyers more money, just for the fun.
Wow, he lives in Rockville.
And they could.
And they
They
could,
could, yeah.
which is why you go to
That's
the
what-
town
that's what-
and you ask for permission.
What are our teeth when we approve it at town meeting?
Well, yeah, once the voters,
Then it's fine.
voters
Then you're
vote to
fine.
override it, you're good.
Well, that sounds like the way
The
to
law
go.
allows that.
Yeah.
And
The story that, you know, and I can't remember which town, it's like Bar Harbor or Mount MDI, something like. Every year, they go through, just like we do, the budget, line by line, or group by group, at town meeting, and they approve it. Sometimes they change it a little bit, but they always approve. The last question on there is, do you approve us exceeding the LD1 cap?
Do we have that on ours?
And the thing is, if the voters say
You
no,
have to start over.
they've already passed the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So there,
And our neighbors in Camden
Yeah.
pass that every year. I
The
talked
first
to,
warrant or the last warrant?
I don't know, I didn't
last.
ask Pat where it was, but I talked to Pat about this last night, and she's like, oh yeah, we do that every year.
yeah,
Have that warrant, or
We can.
do we currently?
No, we haven't done it in the
You know,
past.
Jan, one more thing in answer to your question about lawsuits. I think even a bad lawyer could show that when the state was, thought LD1 was important and people violated it, they didn't let it happen either. So I don't think anybody can come down on us for violating it, even if we didn't go to a vote because of that. There's a history of non-enforcement.
Troy, you are absolutely right, but I'll give you an anecdote, and that is when I first started taking pictures of people on the street, I asked if I could, I asked a lawyer, you know, what happens, am I violating somebody's right if I then sell their photograph? And he said, well, if you're in a public place and they're in a public place, you can take their picture, it's okay. But it will cost you $20,000, this is 40 years ago, $20,000 in lawyer's fees to prove it. And I don't wanna be in a position where we have to pay a lawyer anything, even, just to show that we're in the right. Yeah.
and as a matter of principle, for me, it's, I just don't feel like, without specific direction from the board, my responsibility is to meet that condition that's set upon us.
No, you're right, you're doing the right
There's
thing.
a method,
Right,
and
right.
we know what it is.
And that's, you can do that.
Right.
And I wholeheartedly support that and hope you will.
I just didn't want anybody back here to have heart failure going, we're gonna have to cut what?
Yeah, no,
We have methods.
right,
Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead.
I was
He's had
just-
a number of questions, so.
Okay. Okay, so let's say we do vote, or the town votes to exceed LD one. Does that affect the mill rate then?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So once we go through this whole process, and you'll look at whatever the final budget is, you'll tell us what the mill rate is. and then we'll know how much we've,
We won't know the mill rate till August.
until August, oh, okay.
But because the budget number will be higher,
Right.
the mill rate will be.
Okay, so we know what the mill rate is right now,
Yeah,
and then we could, there's some guess as to what it might be if we,
Yes, which always makes Kerry very nervous. Yeah, Kerry doesn't like that. It always makes Kerry nervous, it always made Ginny nervous. But it's one of the things, you know, I think Jan and I spoke about this in one of the other towns that I worked in. The residents, all of the residents knew, they all knew how much, every time they voted on something, how much, and it was even on all of the voting, this will raise your mill rate by X number of cents. And they kept track of it while they were voting. And that's how they did it, but,
That sounds like New Hampshire.
So,
it was, yeah.
yeah.
couple questions. Can you give me a few of the towns that have ignored LD one?
I can't know.
Camden, we know, has?
No, they don't ignore it, they.
Well,
They just vote not to do it.
Okay, they vote to overrule it then, okay,
Override.
technicality. Give me a town, Camden?
Camden does,
Union does.
yeah.
Union?
Many do.
And nobody's been sued.
Once they vote on it, then you can't.
You can't,
That's part of the legal process.
if it happens, then we don't have to worry about it.
Does Rockland,
Just in case.
But Jan's
Does
point is
Rockland-
that if, they're a city council, so they
don't.
they don't,
Well, they might have LD.
Do they have to do
but
it?
they can
There
do
was
it.
a fact
Oh,
I
do they?
thought was kind of interesting.
If we were-
This is our first time experiencing this because of the reval.
That's right.
And the losing of some
And
of
the
it, so it's our.
losses.
yeah, but let me kind of go with
if we
this for a
went,
minute.
to follow up though, if we went ahead and voted a budget that was higher, you know, we'd be in jeopardy of having to defend ourselves, and whether we win or lose, that would be another thing, but somebody could spend money trying to make us prove how we had the authority to go beyond what the LD1 limit is.
Right, but once we vote on the budget, we've approved the budget with or without LD one.
Right, but Jan's point is that if the voters approve a budget without, and it's higher than LD1, and haven't voted to override LD1.
Right, so we have to do that all on the same day.
We could be in jeopardy
For that 10
slightly.
minutes between
Yep.
voting on the budget and voting. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen upstairs. It's all gonna happen in one evening. Be here, vote.
And the helicopter.
Does Belfast ignore it?
You can keep asking me and I don't know.
Does anybody know if Belfast?
Did they list the towns?
No, and I've searched
Okay.
all over the MMA site, all
Well,
over a variety of things.
My
I
only,
can't find
my
it.
only point on this is, just going down the list here, all of those towns have higher mill rates than we do. So I just want to make that point. So, you know, what we're talking about here is going up. So that's something I'm not real crazy about as a concept. Just sort of saying, we're gonna ignore this because we don't like where the budget lands, but we're pushing ourselves higher and higher on this mill rate.
I
It's
think
already-
the way, the concept where many towns vote to override the LD1 limit is because they go back to the idea that rather than have the state decide what our mill rate should be, that we should have local control to do that.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. That local control is great. Local control, but they're also taxing higher every time they do that.
Well, not necessarily.
No,
Not necessarily unless they go up.
Right.
You know, unless they go beyond it. Camden, I'm not sure where Camden is with their spending on their LD1, but yeah. But typically, you know, a lot of times, they do it just as a matter of course, and many towns, like you just heard Stacy say, Lincolnville votes it every year, but they're typically under their LD1 rate. And I think Dave said David says they're gonna be under again.
and they have a higher, but they're already higher mill rate than we
But
are.
it does reflect on their mill rate, but it's not, that mill rate isn't part of the calculation, correct?
No.
It drives the mill rate.
Mill rate simply falls out of, here's our budget, here's our property value, what's the number that associates with that? That's the mill rate.
You were right, Kerry.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, we get a range of mill rates that we can choose from depending on how big of an overlay we want. So they could say our mill rate could be anywhere from 1405 to 1455, and as you increase that number, our overlay would increase.
Would you mind explaining, I went through the glossary, and I prayed on it, and I still can't figure out what the hell overlay means.
Yeah.
You wanna turn that mic that way, though?
Yeah. You can push that over.
After I made him put it back, I didn't think you'd be.
The original intent of the overlay was to allow for rounding of the tax rate, because way back before computers, when it was all done paper and pencil, it allowed for easier calculations and less writing. That was the purpose behind the overlay. I've researched this a few times. That's about all that statute says about it. It really doesn't, there are a lot of do's and don'ts, but those are like rules of the road, it's not law.
But what physically is it? What number is it?
Oh, well, okay, well, you just did the formula. You said, okay, we take value
Right.
and we divide it into appropriations,
Right,
okay? And we come up with a number.
right,
That's the number without any overlay. That's the mill rate.
right.
So we then create an overlay to do a couple of things. One is to pay for any abatements that come down the line. So somebody deserves an abatement of $10,000, just say, for example. If we haven't budgeted for that money, now we're gonna be in deficit that year for that $10,000. So we create an overlay to cover that kind of expense.
So the overlay is a number that covers expenses that might occur that haven't been accounted for in the,
For a reduction of tax revenue.
or reduction in revenues, okay. A mismatch between we've.
Unanticipated,
factor.
okay?
Cushion.
Fudge factor.
Now, Jan, just to take it a little bit further, so the only real purpose is rounding, and so now we've invented what everybody has commonly accepted to be an acceptable use of it, which is to pay off abatements, okay? Yet the overlay will allow us to, I mean, the range that Megan just spoke about, we could have an overlay of like $700,000. Now, that sounds like a lot more than rounding to me.
Yes.
Right? And I use a state-issued tax rate calculator to figure the mill rate. So this range that we're talking about is not something we've made up, it's something that's state-approved.
So if we decided that we wanted a large overlay, the effect of that would be to lower the mill rate?
No, raise it.
Raise the mill
Raise
rate.
it, yeah.
So by negotiating how big an overlay we want, which is simply a small cushion, we determine what the mill rate is. Smaller overlay, smaller.
It's like any other expense. Look at it this way.
Because- okay.
And this is a good little bit of guidance for you as you're considering what to put back and what to take out. For every $10,000 we spend, that's a penny on the mill rate.
Right.
So you look, just to use a big number to make an example, the fiber optics engineering, $300,000, 30 cents on the mill rate.
Okay.
You're running out of your quota of questions, John.
And
Yes.
Jan, just to conclude it, so if you have an overlay of $20,000, you've added 2 cents to the mill rate.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry.
We don't get to choose that mill rate. He chooses that mill rate.
Understood.
None of us get to get a
I
mill
know
rate.
that. I know.
so, we vote to go beyond LD one this year. What does that do to next year when we are having this conversation? Are we starting with,
Same
we're
choice.
starting with a different number, right? That number in the formula changes?
No, the number in the formula stays the same.
Now,
right?
John, we've never gone above it, so I can't answer that specifically, other than to say on the form that we do the calculation on, it says, did you vote to override LD one?
Oh.
Just once or forever? And there's a different number it wants us to pull depending on how we answer that question. But we've never done that, so I don't know what the answer
So
is.
we could vote at town meeting to just
Ignore it.
kick LD1 out for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I guess so.
No,
I think
not for
so.
the rest of our
I thought we
life.
had to
We
do it
gotta
every
we
year.
gotta recalculate it next year.
No, but
He
Carrie
just
just
said
said
forever.
forever.
I gotta Do you have that with you by any
No, I
chance? I don't either.
Right, but
Yeah.
The LD one form.
it
Yeah.
could be like
Oh, the
Camden
form.
that does it
They do it every year.
Do
Most
we
towns
have-
do it every
how
year.
many- How many things do we have on the ballot every year that are
Housekeeping.
housekeeping, boilerplate, about accepting
15,
gifts and accepting, you know, all those kind of things. And that's where, I would presume, that's where Camden puts it. It's just one of those
one of the
that you
yeah.
pass every year so that you can
Don't,
do
you don't
business.
warn anybody, you don't
Well-
explain it. You just put it
Well,
on
I
the
mean, you
ballot.
can read them, we've got plenty that we have on our ballot every year. That we
Actually, the
vote on
difference
at
is
town
slight.
meeting.
The difference is slight. It says here, this next to last question, did the municipality vote to exceed the limit once? If yes, please describe why. And then it says this means the municipality will calculate next year's limit based on line 13, which I'll get to in a second. And it says, did the municipality vote to increase the limit permanently for current and future years? Voting to increase the limit means the municipality will calculate next year's limit based on line 14. Line 13, the first one, is this year's municipal tax levy limit. I love these forms. Line 14, this year's municipal property tax levy limit. It would take me a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but anyway, so Heaven is right. I mean, you can vote to permanently step out of LD one.
But is that why they do it every year, so they don't have to check that box? And at the same time, where does that piece of paper go, people?
Carrie's door.
Into Carrie's office.
Okay, we're running well behind. Do we have any other questions?
I had a quick one with a clarification. So a town with a historically high mill rate could have a better position in LD one than a town that doesn't, that is more fiscally responsible?
No, I don't,
think so.
no, I don't think so.
It has to do with value.
Okay.
Well, it
So
comes back to
it's
value.
based on valuation?
Yeah, just.
Could it affect our bondability? Or
Bondability,
interest rates that
yeah.
we pay on a bond?
No, because we don't owe that much.
Okay.
Our debt service, when we get to debt, we're very low in debt.
Yeah, that I know.
They ask any LD one questions on the bond application?
Nope.
You are already 14 minutes beyond the end of your allotted
You
time.
can dismiss me.
He'll get up and run away just for you.
Just so you know, when I said Kerry was right, he said, well, without the heavy hit, as I call them, the heavy hitters, police, fire, public works, all the big budgets are tomorrow. That means they have more time to spend on assessing.
The other thing, Rick, and maybe it has no bearing whatsoever, is that you said schools have to, do fall under LD one also, the school
Yeah.
budgets, but they never follow it.
They
Do they
ignore it.
have to vote not to follow it?
I was gonna make that point earlier.
Yeah.
They've never voted to
So,
override it.
and doesn't that, in the long run, then affect our budget too,
Very much
obviously?
so. Because,
I mean, that's
because
our
they blow right
budget.
by it and then they pass that
Yeah.
expense onto us,
Like
right?
69% of our budget?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that doesn't seem fair.
That's, Stevie, that's what's always been inherently unfair about it.
Yeah,
Is there a
So-
lawyer in the house?
wow.
So the first budget is assessing. One of the things I'm not sure if you followed, but what we're doing with assessing is we're sharing assessing services between the town of Rockport and the town of Camden. And so, there's, you'll see a bunch of changes in the budget, but then you go down to the bottom, when you see the revenues, you'll see a revenue from Camden reimbursement of $63,548,
Can you give me a page number?
sorry,
79.
sorry.
Thank you.
So, and you're on that page, right?
Gets to move it. I looked at it and bit my head off.
Yeah.
She's a trained technician.
Yeah, right.
The last time I touched it, it unplugged the computer, so,
He was trying to save you.
yeah, right.
Thank you, Rick.
All right.
So, and the only place, well, where's the place? Oh, the place that I made a substantial cut here, which I'm not happy about, but we made that cut anyways, is then the professional services under assessing. As we combined the two departments, one of the things is that we may have the need, this is all new, and we may have the need to while Kerry's over there half-time and here half-time, we may have the need to use their person there to help with measuring and listing and some other work. And so we had put an amount of money of $10,000. I reduced that down to $5,000 to just say, in the event we need some assistance, we have some money to be able to do that. So I cut that by 50% and cut it down to $5,000 so that we could bring that, what's her title over there?
Assistant assessor.
Assistant assessor over here, just like Kerry goes over there. Because as Kerry had said, one of my fears is that we used to have Kerry full-time. Now suddenly we only have him half-time. And I never had the feeling that he was sitting in his office with nothing to do. He was always busy, always doing things, and it's like, well, how's that stuff going to get done? And he's confident he can get it done, but also it might make sense for us to be able to bring in somebody from that office to help with the measuring and listing and make that piece of it here go faster.
You should explain items in red or things that you.
Oh, okay, yes, right, thank you. When you look at your budget, the items that are highlighted in red are things that I cut out of the budget specifically to meet that LD1 requirement. Or they were cut or reduced, so you can see, the department head request was for 10,000 and I made it 5,000, so you can see that's, I just reduced it. And that was specifically to meet LD1, because I was gonna leave it in, but then in order to meet LD1, I took it out. And then also computer supplies, I cut that back. That's an insignificant amount of $200.
$800.
No, I cut $200 out of it, I'm
Oh, I
recommending.
got you, yep. I just had a quick one. Carrie, is your cell phone part of your contract, which is why there's no money allocated for it?
I have an unlimited plan, so I don't need to be paid for my cell phone.
Okay.
I asked them the same question.
Legal.
I'm also a taxpayer.
The legal fees, line 3040.
Uh-huh.
You're already at 4781. I know that the year before it was astronomically high for real reasons, but is 5,500 going to be enough again? Because you're halfway through the year and you're already 7/8 of the way.
Yes. Here's why. We passed the abatement deadline on Friday, and I only have one. And I won't need any legal help for that one. So that's the basic crux of my legal needs, are to defend us on abatements and that sort of thing, so.
And legal fees are very difficult to budget for, because it doesn't take much of a case to just put legal fees through the roof.
And don't we have some sort of, I'm gonna sound like an idiot here, but I thought we had some sort of cap on what we paid through MMA or something, where we would only ever pay, maybe it's Camden that does it this way. They have like a,
This isn't MMA.
Yeah, this is, our legal fees for defending, like,
Drummond Woodson, Portland.
Yeah. This is real lawyers.
okay. Maybe I'm making stuff up, sometimes my mind does that, but
Mine too.
I thought that Camden, when they were talking, there was a specific case, and they were talking about, we're gonna get sued, and then one of them kinda offhandedly was like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter, because we've got like our deductible, and then we're covered.
you're
Oh,
talking
okay.
about two different
That's
things.
different.
Yeah, you're talking about two
Oh.
different things. That's, one's covered.
General liability versus carry
No,
specific.
what they're talking about is
Is
the
it
insurance
insurance?
company is out for everything except the deductible.
Okay,
So Camden's saying that, it's not gonna be any worse than whatever that
Yeah,
deductible
yeah.
amount is.
Steve?
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
Under personnel services, I'm confused in terms of, and maybe you explained that in terms of the halftime. under the administrative assistant, 20 hours a week,
Oh, we have an administrator.
Sharon assistant.
okay. So, but it's really been different. I mean, it's been 20 hours a week for those budget years shown, and,
And that's gonna stay the same.
okay,
The professional services is somebody that it's a contracted, we'd be paying the town of Camden
oh, okay,
to use their person here.
okay.
It's much the way Camden is paying us to use Kerry there.
So, Carrie, I'm sorry, as I say, my brain's kind of fried. But the budget for fiscal year 15-16 for your salary, and then for this year, or for the proposal, and am I reading that right? 45.1% change?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's because you're part-time at Camden? And they pay better than we do?
They do.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Look it over at
And then
revenue.
if you look over here where there's that little blue, that's where Camden pays us
Okay,
back for
okay,
having
all
it.
right. Okay.
It's offset by the revenue coming in.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Rockport's paying me less than it
Right.
used to, and Camden's paying me less than they would pay a separate assessor, so
Okay,
it's
I
supposed to
get
be a
it.
win-win
interesting.
Okay, thanks.
For everyone but you.
I have a question. So, I'm just curious about this. So, we're getting half of you, Carrie, and is that because you're not doing the reassessment and overseeing all the stuff you've done in the past year? I mean, what's changing in your workload? How's this, I'm just trying to figure out how this is gonna work. I mean, I know you're an amazing, talented, highly productive individual, but,
Say no more.
okay.
It really, remember when we first started talking about this,
Right.
I was saying that the key to it is having really good assistants, because a lot of assessing is file clerking. And then a lot of what's left is routine stuff. And so what we're trying to accomplish by this, is have assistants take care of both of those things I just mentioned, and have me take care of the complex things, the valuation questions, the abatement defenses, and all that kind. So by freeing me up of the routine, it enables me to do that. But the only way it works is with really good assistants. By the fact that Megan is sitting here as finance director proves what a good assistant I had before. To be that caliber where she can handle this that well. So the challenge was, once Megan got promoted, was to find somebody who can, be as good. Because my assistant in Camden is full-time. My assistant in Rockport is half-time. I share that person with Megan. So what it comes down to is that in Camden, Caitlin does all the day-to-day assessing. In Rockport, I do it. So I do the day-to-day assessing, I do the tough stuff, I do none of the filing, and as Sarah learns her job more, I'll do none of the routine stuff, which I'm doing now, but Sarah's learning and quickly taking it over.
So, kind of follow-up question?
Yeah, yes, you certainly
But
may.
you have almost used up your allotment.
So after,
You're working on tomorrow's.
a few years down the road, if there's, say, something, is there any big initiative on the horizon that's gonna involve the assessor's office, that's gonna, screw the ideal dream plan here?
Well, I mean, I
Or
hope-
suddenly you have a ton more on your
I hope
plate?
not. You and I worked together a lot many years ago, and one of the things that we always did then, and I still do now, is think about who's gonna replace me. And you wanna train people so they're coming up. But that makes me think of something. One thing that's gone on is, this seems to be a trend that's going on in municipalities, and maybe it's because there aren't enough high-level assessors out there, but, the agreement that we made with Camden, we use as a guide an agreement between Scarborough and Cape Elizabeth. And then Gray and, I think, New Gloucester, I'm not quite sure, just recently came onto an agreement. Cumberland and Yarmouth is doing it. So I think actually we're at the beginning of a trend for what's going on. And as other people do it, we can learn from that as well. But anyway, the short answer to your question is that everybody's replaceable, and I hope that whenever my time comes, we're ready for it.
But we do have, Camden is gonna be facing a reval, is it next year?
Next year, yeah.
They're gonna be doing a reval next year. And part of this is, it's a little bit of a leap of faith and trust in our neighboring community. And, you know, Pat and I have talked extensively, the boards have talked extensively about this. And it may need to be modified as we go along, into next year and the year after. You know, the piece that made me a little bit nervous was that professional services piece, and we talked about that and said, let's have something in there so that if he feels like he's getting, you know, behind, we have some amount of money that we can say, we can bring the Camden person over here. And ultimately, the goal is to just potentially have one assessing office, and, you know, for assessing purposes, you have one assessing office, and it handles 2 towns. And the beauty of what we're doing here is the 2 towns are so well-suited because they're very, very similar for assessing purposes. And it makes it an easy thing to do that joint work, and it saves the town money. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, our budget's going down, what, how much? 18%, 16%? It goes down $23,000, right?
So it's kind of like having a
16%,
dentist and dental assistants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You do the heavy-duty stuff and they do the cleaning.
And if I could, I don't know if this helps with your comfort level. One of the things is that I took away from the meetings that we had was we seem to be putting a lot of trust in Carrie, which I'm comfortable with, in where are you allocating your time. We're not going to be holding little strings on you and having you clock in. So if something changes with Camden or with Rockport, he has flexibility to ramp up hours at Camden or ramp up hours at Rockport, depending on what their actual landscape is looking like. So we've given him, I think, good flexibility.
Absolutely, but I'm keeping a tally, so at the end of the year, we can say how'd it work out.
Yep.
You know, and we'll have a rough idea.
The $5,000 that Rick cut because of LD one from your $10,000 estimate of a whole new thing, how comfortable, or where did the $10,000 number come from? How comfortable are you with Rick's forced cut on it? And is it something that we as a committee need to pay a lot of attention to try to get back in?
To be perfectly honest, I made a calculation to get there, but everything that went into the calculation was guesswork, you know, so.
You had an overlay?
I can up that any minute. Yeah, that's what I'll do, I'll just pay for it with the overlay.
Yeah,
You know, so I made a best guess at it, so when Rick cut it back, I said, okay, well, here's a different best guess, and we'll see how it works. You know, so I really can't argue against it or for it, really.
Quick question I have. So the Camden person, this would be the Camden person that's full-time over there, might be filling in over here for
Assisting me, not filling in.
assistant.
Yeah. It's a big difference, because she
Right.
can't desert the Camden office to come to ours.
Okay, so then who would be coming over here to help, or?
It's not,
No.
we're talking mostly about field work.
Okay.
Field work is, you know, I mean, most of what I do, I can prioritize according to deadlines and that sort of thing, but field work is field work. If there's 300 inspections I have to do, there's just no way I can make that take any shorter unless I put more people on it.
Okay.
So that's the idea.
So this
behind
would be a brand-new person?
No, this would be the Camden assistant
That's
coming
what-
out with me and doing field work.
Oh, okay.
But not doing office time here, just doing field work with me.
Okay, and that person right now is
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 assistant-
office person over there, or?
She's an assessor, she's a certified assessor.
Ah, okay.
And she works full-time as my assistant in Camden.
Okay,
She's not reception, that's somebody else. So when we're out on the road, we still have somebody there answering questions.
okay. Then that person would be the equivalent of your half-time person here?
Not really. That's really the equivalent of just a traffic manager, somebody answering phones and when somebody comes in and wants to see me, saying, no, he'll be back at a certain time. Not somebody who's gonna answer assessing questions.
Okay, so you based your estimate on some portion for a number of hours that you estimate you might need
Yes.
this field person to help you?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Any other questions?
ready for GA?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Clap. I'm a clapper. Great job. Great job. Way to know your numbers.
89, 90, 91.
You were supposed to be done half an hour ago, according to our
Blame the
little
town
agenda.
manager.
No, she was supposed to be done 16 minutes ago.
I just love having these.
No. Carrie
Page
was
numbers
supposed to
on
be done a half an hour
Makes
ago.
me way more happy.
Yeah, what page are we on?
Page
Oh,
number
it's on your schedule, oh, okay.
It's in the front.
In this, in the very front.
So with general assistance, as you know, whatever it is, we have to pay it. And Stacy was doing some calculations today. For some reason, we've seen an inordinate amount of requests for assistance with housing. And our housing, why is this gray in the middle of it? Our housing, oh, okay. Our housing numbers are up considerably. We've already spent, what have we spent? 13,000 this year
What
for
line
housing.
would that be?
It is 3360.
And we still have, and you had four
I was
clients
including
today?
what I did today was $13,614.
Right.
I've got 3 tomorrow and 3 on Thursday and 2 on Monday, and so it's not stopping.
It's been pretty busy. It's pretty typical that this is when we get hit with this stuff because people are running out of money. They've exhausted everything that they can exhaust. And it happens that this is where we start to see all of that stuff. But so that may be an item we have to look at as we were building the budget. We just used last year's number, but we may want to bump that number up.
But if I read this right, whatever we spend out of that grayed area,
Yes.
we're reimbursed at
Reimbursed.
70%.
We are.
If the state has the money to reimburse.
Yeah, so far so good. I haven't even got some of last year yet.
Yeah.
Yes,
So if we push this up to, let's say, 15,000,
yes.
we would push up the,
Right.
the 70.
That was my example.
What is what is the reimbursement?
70%.
70%.
Yeah.
So if we boosted it up to 15,000, that would make my total of of 70% reimbursable, 20,750. You'd move the revenue to 14,525. That was just my example of 15,000 today. I suspect I'm going to be probably at 18 or 19 before we're done
18 or 19 total?
by June.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got people with vouchers, but no place to get into.
That's what I was gonna ask you, is that this is a result of the
It's-
housing shortage and homelessness
It's
crisis, essentially?
It is 100% homelessness. My housing right now is 100% homelessness.
Okay.
And the shelter is full. And they have vouchers, but they can't get houses inspected to meet the criteria to move into. They keep on failing.
So they keep, and they're going to hotels, and these are the vouchers.
Temporary
used.
housing, yep.
Yes, temporary housing, thank you.
Now, this is one of those areas where state law allows us to
It's
overspend.
one of two.
Stacy,
Yes.
you haven't had any requests for fuel assistance
It's
yet?
so warm. Light heat kicked in.
We
It
had
was
those really
warm.
cold sections, though, and
What's
still-
that?
Those really, really cold weeks and still?
Light heat kicked in. It was a little more this year.
Okay.
They didn't have to use it as early. Usually I see those in October and November because light heat doesn't kick in until December. They had some light heat money left. Heating costs went down and light heat kicked in and I haven't had any.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Low income for, it's assistance, heat assistance for, and electricity assistance.
Alan and I can answer that one. We've only had 2 general assistance calls for heat from both either Rockport or Camden this year, just 2.
Wow, good.
And the price of fuel being down as much as it is as well.
Who says global warming is bad?
I have a question. Medical assistance, is that not ever a budgeted thing because,
Yes, because what happens is, Owen, we have a main care number. So if someone comes in to get prescriptions, we would get those prescriptions at a main care rate. And we have been fortunate that if they don't have main care and we get our main care rate, that their main care kicks in within 60 days and they backtrack and pay it. So it's been usually a
Okay.
existent item for us because of that main care.
But is it active? I mean, is it something that you have to do on a regular basis?
Yes, if someone comes in for a
Yeah,
prescription, I
yeah.
call it, we have our own main care number, we get that rate. But like I said, we've been fortunate to have the main care kick
No,
in.
but it is something that,
Absolutely.
that does happen,
Prescriptions,
yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
What does MCHH mean? It's in the.
Mid-Coast
supplemental.
Hospitality House,
Hosp-
Mid-Coast Hospitality House, which is now run by the Knox County Homeless Coalition.
It's no longer Penquist. Wasn't Penquist?
Nope, total
Part of
separate.
it?
Penquist was kind of getting it going again and trying to
Yeah.
get it, but now it's under the Knox County Homeless Coalition.
Okay.
They've filed their own 501s, they're, a nonprofit. They have like 28 caseworkers, most of my clients come in with a caseworker. So there are, people there that are helping them, get into the programs, register at the Career Center, resume classes, filling out their Section 8 housing, so that has been good, that piece is there now, so.
They took us in when our house burnt down, so I've always got a soft spot for the hospitality house.
Yeah,
Steve,
yes, Steve.
I'd love to go back to fiscal year 12-13. It looked like that was the highest time, and it looks like the numbers have gone down, well, they went down, and then coming back up. Is there any
Kind of
rhyme or
think
reason to
about
that?
when the homeless shelter was open and then when the homeless shelter closed.
Okay.
And it's funny that you would think that the trend would be when the homeless shelter was closed, that we'd spend a lot more.
Yeah,
But they come to the shelter,
right.
they put them in for temporary housing for a week, and then that's paid for from some grants that they have, and then they make appointments to see me.
Okay.
So that is bringing, a lot of people to Rockport, but everyone is a resident.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Stacy. Next at bat, planning community development. Where are they? They're further. Where are they in this whole scheme?
They're back.
In the back?
No, they're back.
Towards the front? I'm going the wrong way.
69.
See that sheet right there?
This
Where are they next to?
What
What are they next to?
630.
Oh,
And then look across and give you the page number.
We asked for that a couple of years ago, and it's
Yeah.
a miracle.
And you
You
got
have to
it.
keep training people.
I know.
Yeah,
Well,
that
Megan,
training
we
took
didn't
4
have to train.
seconds.
She did it just like
blank.
that.
I got a blank here.
Scroll up. Scroll up.
Oh,
Hey, so everyone knows Jamie's wicked nervous, so don't be mean
So
to
we
him.
can't pick, John can't ask questions.
No,
Or
not
Jan.
allowed.
so this was a tough budget. One of the places that took the biggest hit here was the CEO of MUBEC Inspections, money for a MUBEC. The main,
Uniform building, energy code.
Yeah,
All right, too many people saying that.
Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code.
so,
What's that about?
The Ordinance Review Committee has recommended adopting the Maine Uniform Building Code. Select Board showed some interest, Planning Board had a workshop, but that would require somewhere between 8 and 15 new hours of CEO time. So if we're not gonna fund that position, we probably should hold off on adopting the ordinance.
I wouldn't go,
CEO meaning what?
I wouldn't go that far.
The code enforcement officer's
code-
responsibilities
okay,
expand under MUBEC.
If I can, we don't know that it's gonna get passed. My hope is that it will get passed. And it won't be, it's my understanding that if it does get passed, it wouldn't be adopted until, January 1st, correct?
That's an option
Yeah.
that we will write into the ballot question.
Right, and then also, with building and construction down as much as it is, I'm not 100% convinced that we can't handle it. We will, if we start building a lot of houses and doing a lot of work, we will have to do that. We will have to consider adding more hours in. But at this point, it's one of those things where you may want to put some money back in so that we have money to be able to go and you know, to hire somebody to help if we do get hit with a bunch of inspections that the code enforcement officer can't keep up with.
Jamie, what's the point of it?
The point of the Uniform Building Code, it's, it standardizes what is expected in terms of life safety requirements.
How much time does it add to
It
an
adds,
inspection?
where we now have 2 inspections for a residential structure from scratch to C of O, it would be 7.
So do you realize today, you think we do building inspections when people build a building?
I'm not sure I
No.
really wanna hear this, do
Oh,
we?
yeah. You don't if you're
It's like
buying a house.
sausage, I'd rather not know about what goes
yeah.
on. Fine.
We currently do not inspect building construction. The only thing that we inspect.
We pay you for it. No,
The
sorry.
only thing we inspect is, in building construction, is plumbing.
Wow.
So we don't do electrical inspections, we don't do construction
Serious?
inspections, we don't do any of that. I haven't heard of anybody drowning in their
I
house.
remember these faces.
Come to the meetings.
And this includes public buildings too, Rick, I just wanna.
No, I don't think so.
I'm still the one person in the room that totally does not want MUBEC. I'm still the one person that's like, come on, guys, we don't have to.
We don't
We
do.
would voluntarily be entering into it. We do not cross the population threshold
Right.
to have the state require us to do it. So we would, of our own free will, be entering into a new code.
Is this a budget
Being
conversation,
progressive.
or is this a
Well,
select
we
board conversation?
started to go down the rabbit hole.
So, a vast majority of the.
Discussion for next week.
Right.
Okay.
But a vast majority of the population does not realize that we do not do building inspections. The only inspection we do is plumbing. And so when you get a house built, the thing was that when we were building the caliber of houses that were being built several years ago were high enough
High,
caliber of houses so that there was enough of a profit margin for the builder to make enough money, and they didn't cut corners. And they just made enough money, they built the house right, and it didn't require us to even really get involved a whole lot. But as the margins have come down and the need for housing that is diverse and more workforce housing, housing that's more affordable for the average worker, you know, as we start to get down there, the margin of what the builder makes is smaller and smaller, so they're looking for ways to cut corners, and the places that they cut corners sometimes is in the safety stuff. And so there's a building code that doesn't allow them to do that, and this adopts that building code and provides us the authority to inspect and make sure that they're following the building code.
So
And
one of,
Rick, you'll want to let everybody know, we laid some groundwork with Camden to follow Carrie's footsteps and,
Right.
and share.
Right,
And
yeah,
share,
that's-
and share a
Personnel.
person there, because code enforcement is code enforcement, you know, building inspections are building inspections, and once you adopt the MUBEC, it doesn't matter whether you're doing the inspection here or in Camden.
so if there are codes for things like electrical stuff, I have a great fear of electrical problems. So you're saying there's no inspection to prove that your builder, for instance, like right now, I think code for smoke alarms, for instance, is if every bedroom has to have a smoke alarm in terms of when you resell. So if that's code, but there's no way to prove that that's being done, so when you
Right.
put your house on the
Nobody's-
market.
It's not done exactly without a net. There's a number of ways that it will get figured out by a lender or an
Okay,
appraiser
that's- yeah.
or somebody who's involved in a transaction. But you can still have people stumble into this important transaction, you know, biggest thing happening in their lives, or it may be commercial,
Right.
where they don't realize that there's no code. And the really important impact of the cost of inspections, which Owen is alluding to,
Yeah.
may or may not be outweighed. In my opinion, it's outweighed by removing this friction from the marketplace, because we get a buyer, a prospective buyer, or even worse, a recent buyer of property in Rockport who comes in pulling their hair out saying, what do you mean this isn't up to code? Now I want to work on renovations and my lender is balking at it.
Okay.
Gary, somebody pays for, if you buy a house, somebody pays for the inspections, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a wash-through for the town.
No.
Not necessarily.
Different kind of
Different
inspection.
inspection.
You're
different-
talking about a buyer's inspection.
Yeah, the buyer.
We're talking about a building inspection.
Okay.
So, and that is
But
my
we don't,
question.
so we would not be charging the builders or the owners of the
Yeah,
property?
we'd reclaim some of that money in inspection fees.
That's what I'm asking
Right,
about.
yeah.
Whether you reclaim it all, I don't know that you reclaim it all. I don't, I don't think you get it all back. You'll get a large portion of it back, but,
Well, what the guy from Rockland said is that you look at that difference as an investment in having
Oh,
a
absolutely.
quality
Right, right.
valuation, because you
Right,
know that your housing
exactly.
stock is up to code,
Mhm.
and so that makes it worth more.
yeah, oh,
Why
absolutely.
plumbing and not electrical?
So for a little bit of background for all of you who haven't been to all of these meetings, it was 2011 that any town above, how big?
2,000.
It changed.
It was
Yeah, it
first
changed,
2000.
That too.
but then they didn't do it. I didn't want to go there.
Oh.
When did it actually go into effect?
They put it in Cary's.
2000,
To change it to 4,000?
yeah.
I'm not sure, but it was by 2008 for
So
sure.
by 2008, any town that was more than 4,000 residents has to do this. We are under that. So we do have to put it to a vote, and everybody has to agree, or majority has to agree to even do this.
Jamie, if there's a, I'm sorry.
So,
Right over
can
you.
I make a statement? I'm on the planning board, Tom's on the planning board. Planning board has gone through at least 2 very long meetings on this. It's been very thoroughly discussed. Vote, Tom, was it, am I recalling it correctly? It was unanimous to go ahead and recommend MUBEC? Were you-
Without the energy,
Without
there's
the
two
energy.
parts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
We've got the building code- the building
MUBC,
and
not
safety codes, and
without
then the
energy.
energy codes.
So we can, this is, should have no E with it, it should be MUBC. But it was unanimous
Right.
in the planning board to go ahead and do this. And we had a very, very healthy discussion about it, and we weighed all the pros and cons. So I just want to let everybody
And
know.
I think, you remind me, isn't that what the board recommended to?
No.
You didn't take a position on the energy code?
Yes, we did. We were forced to by a specific member of this board to put the energy part in.
So
We had that vote.
So we did, the energy went back in?
No, nothing's happened yet.
Right, but
We
to-
are
to
waiting
recommend-
for recommendations from planning board and ORC, and then this
But
board
you
will
left
have
it
to decide
open-ended.
what we want to put
With
on the
or
ballot.
without the energy, we're still gonna have the inspection load of it, so even in the sort of a little bit scaled back version without the energy requirement, this had very strong support from the.
Oh,
planning board.
absolutely.
Yes.
Support from me, too. I've been the one, I've
Okay,
been
so I
pushing this.
just wanna clarify for everybody.
Yeah, in this case, John's trying to spare you a lot more questions because what I ought to
Hearing
do
the same conversation.
is share with the budget committee some of that planning board correspondence and research. But it's an important question, and we're right here at budget time trying to decide, should we make this leap into new ordinances? And how should we staff for it? The danger being, if we do it too little and we go in without enough preparation in terms of staff, we certainly don't want to give the new ordinances a bad debut in town. People will want to see, appropriate execution of all these inspections. And the follow-up point, as Rick made, is, well, we can buy time. We're doing this on a voluntary basis. If we adopt it, it can be January 1, it can be April after mud season and when we expect the next building season to begin. And the only caveat with that is there's some game theory going on. You could excite a lot of the do-it-yourselfers to do a lot of crappy building between the adoption of the ordinance July 1 and the effective date whenever that may
They
be.
could be doing that right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, they are.
I was gonna
So
say.
just FYI, for those of you who want to know more, there is a live stream of the November 18th meeting with the planning board that reviewed
Right.
it. And that is the one that Carmen, is that her name?
Yep.
It's
Came
very
and
good.
spoke. So it is archived on live stream, and you can watch the whole event.
November 18th.
November 18th.
November 18th on the Rockport live stream page. And
watching.
yeah,
It's
she has
very
a whole
informative.
bunch of examples and interesting things.
It
to
even
know.
turned most it even turned most, not all, but most people that were marginally opposed to it in favor of it after hearing Carmen speak. Not all of them.
Because you
Yeah.
would think that in a place like Rockport with money, with professionals, and the sort of kind of services we have, that people would do things like that.
This is not the place
And
for
they
this
don't.
conversation.
No.
But it is worth it's worth the budget committee hearing, because it's going to affect the town.
And let's do it at the budget committee meeting when we dissect this also. The one question that I have for Jamie is, if we do not put back the $10,400.
Or some portion of it.
I would not have confidence adopting a new code without
You are
some
certi- you
funding
are
to
certi-
implement
You
it.
yourself are certified to do,
I am.
and what does it take for somebody to be, if we want to find 3 certified inspectors in a rush, do they exist, or is this a brand new thing? Can we
Third-party
hire-
inspectors?
Well,
They are out there, but they create a regime that's been unsuccessful. To give you a statistical point of view, I don't know of any who have re-upped. You know, the state rolled out this training and certification, and the TPIs are not coming back to get recertified. And one of the reasons is that there's this problematic handoff at the end. The town staff will have to issue the C of O at the end, which is the last of those 7 inspections, and right now it's the last of 1 or 2, depending what we're doing. And so they'll be doing that on the basis of a bunch of inspections by this third-party TPI, and there's just this confidence problem of signing off on that. But I would hate to stop short of implementing this ordinance. I think that the town is ripe in a lot of ways to step up, but I want to be prepared.
if we hired somebody to do inspections,
We
How long would it take?
have,
how long would it take to get them certified? With the people that we have to do them, or how long would it take to get Lubec inspection for certification for somebody who inspects homes?
You are permitted to let it slide for a whole year. You can appoint that person on such and such date in 2016, and they don't have to be certified until the next year on that date. And it is no problem to do it during that time to get the first.
And in the meantime, they just have to follow the rules.
Yes, but I wouldn't. What I would recommend is relying on one of the code officers in Camden who may have a day per week to spare, rather than giving ourselves the headache of new code and new staff all at once.
A new cooperative agreement.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea wasn't to hire somebody.
Right.
It was to share somebody from elsewhere.
And keep in mind, we have 2 people in the office that can do inspections. We're only doing, 7 permits a week, if that, currently. We're not doing that many.
We've gone through all winter doing 7 and 10 and 12 a month.
Yeah, so it's not like we're overwhelmed. It could get to that point where we need that, but right now, unless we get a building boom, which would be significant, an amount of money in there would be nice. I don't know that we need to go overboard and we have somebody we have 2 people in the office that are certified. The reality is, I don't want Jamie out doing building inspections. That's not his job. He can, but that's not his job. But we do have a code enforcement officer that is certified to do building inspections. So,
Another question? So, if the voters approve MUBEC, or MUB-C.
yep.
How
How do you say it without the E?
Yeah, I can't.
Mubs.
I can't.
Put an apostrophe in.
If that gets approved, you're saying that we could effectively put an implementation date of it, like
Of January 1st.
like January 1.
Right.
That's totally acceptable, and so that's one way to deal with it.
When it's
So,
voluntary, you're
When do
on
we
your
draft
own
the
time.
language for the question on the ballot?
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
When do we have to finalize the language for the question on the
The,
ballot?
I have all the drafts. What we're gonna do is publish an ad in the March 17th newspaper. That will follow the select board meeting of March 16th, where all of that language will be reviewed for the first
So it's
time.
coming
But I
right
can
out.
distribute that, and my plan is to do it after the very next ORC meeting, so middle of
Is
Thursday
it
this
worth
week.
us having a discussion of what date we want to put in there, here in this group?
Well,
That-
as
that would
Tom
be
and Jan are
budget.
saying, we can work on policy in this setting all we want, but I don't want to slow you down in a budget conversation.
That's one of our issues.
Yes.
All right,
Select board makes
all right, just wanted to clarify, thank you.
Are we done with MUB?
Yes,
Are
but
we-
I have one more question, and that is, 7315, computer line printer. You have requested $1,200, it's been reduced to $300. I'm wondering how serious, if you really have a $1,200 need?
Where are you, I'm sorry?
Line, I'm sorry,
7315.
7315, computer.
He moved
science.
off of Mubeck without us moving off of Mubeck.
Yes, I'm not on Mubeck.
I've got quite a lot in purchase and contractual services, the 30s, but now we're down in the 70s.
I'm not,
Go
I'm
ahead.
down in the 70s.
Yep, go ahead.
7315, computer/printer, capital item.
Yep.
You requested 1,200, which in fact was a 40% reduction from last year.
Keep in mind, this is my reduction, so your question should be to me.
No, my question is actually to Jamie, that I'm asking him how critical he thinks the $1,200 that he asked for is. All right, let me ask you the view.
Yeah.
Why
You don't know
should-
what it is yet.
I don't know what it is, this is what I'm
What I
asking.
cut.
Supplemental
Effectively,
information.
that's what I'm asking.
So-
What
I'm back
what
up
are
here
we
with these
talking about here?
What I
Thank you.
cut was, there was a
See the
large
cuts
format
there?
scanner in there in the amount of,
civil
about
engineering.
$900 to be able to scan big blueprints. And the number of blueprints that we're doing at any given point in time, for $900, we can run them down to the copy place and get them scanned in. It's another piece of equipment. We had a big plotter that we did have. Cost us a lot of money to keep up for the number of times we used it. It's just as easy to get it done outside, if we do
Then why-
20 of those scans a year, so I cut it out.
So why did you leave him $300?
For a print, another printer in the office.
Thank you.
Okay, we're off of Mubeck.
Yes.
Owen had a,
Mine is under purchased and contractual
Yeah, mine too.
services line 3805 advertising. I'm not disputing, I'm just curious what advertising you do and why your request, like, what changed in that 14-15 year that necessitated over 2,000 and why do you still need it? And
It's an uptick in advertising of public hearings. So this is a form of notice that you give when somebody's proposing a certain type of development on property A. The neighbors within a certain distance are entitled to a letter, and there's an ad in the newspaper. And some of the feedback I got early on, getting to know the style of my new planning board, was they had been disappointed in the past by people coming forward saying, "Where was my notice?" and "Why can't we do it as like Camden does?" And so all I've done is double check the statutory requirements and what's in our ordinance and try and meet that consistently.
Okay.
And for better or worse, prior to that fiscal year that you've mentioned, the staff felt comfortable knowing when do we need to ramp up notice because it's important, and when, can we just skate with the minimum. Not doing that now.
Gotcha, thank you.
okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
You had your hand up, I didn't.
So did I.
3095, which is your civil engineer, is
That's
the
my
part that
line.
got cut. So I don't know what that was for. It just says preliminary engineering for community grant projects.
This one over.
Where am I?
So you cut it out. What are we gonna lose out on by not having that?
Yeah, that's one that it bothered me to cut it, but it was one of those things that removes preliminary engineering for community grant projects and Woodard and Curran projects, but it leaves money for the TIF work that we've needed to get done, so it leaves that money in. But that's an area where if we put some money back in, that would be money that I think would be well spent.
I mean, do you have examples? Because there's nothing here. It just says
Yeah.
preliminary engineering for community grant projects.
I have a
So-
few examples. For
Was it from 2000, didn't I?
some examples are design for the intersection at 17 and 90, for example. I just participated in a meeting where many residents felt the town is being caught flat-footed at an opportunity because MDOT's here working on the signals. And what Rockport is used to, it regularly gets from Public Works Director, is a miracle of, yes, in this budget year, I can stretch myself and do this length of sidewalk that's going to enhance the Route 1 and 90 MDOT signal upgrade. But some projects require longer-term planning and require the town to have done a little bit of anteing up in terms of preliminary design. And when it leads to a grant and it makes you a more competitive applicant for a grant application, it's somewhat easier to pitch as a department head. But where I'm trying to go with a number of these requests was a little bit more speculative. I want the town to be prepared for community development projects that may not bring in grant money, but are just things the town wants to do. So another example is expanding parking for the CMCA building and building a pathways connection between there and this Opera House parking lot. It's a very grant eligible project, but we would never get that grant without some preliminary engineering. And similarly, you could never ask a public works director, hey, in your spare time this year, can you figure this out? It's just beyond what you can do in 1 year and what you can do in terms of just go out and build it. To be competitive, we need a preliminary design. So what I did was get cost estimates for preliminary design work sufficient to make a competitive grant application or sufficient to gain the upper hand in conversations with MDOT and the like. And so there are a number of examples of those projects that I could go through, but that's the idea.
How does this equate to what we're doing with Gartley and Dorsey? We have them on a retainer to do things.
It's supplemental to that. There's times where it's a retainer, but we pay for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. But we have to budget.
Right.
Where does that fall?
Well, this would be, some of that money would be paying them, or if they couldn't do the work, would be to pay somebody else.
But for this coming year, we're planning on using them, aren't we?
Oh, we're using them.
So where is all that money?
That money is coming out of the bond money we have. So all of these projects are bonded that we're using them for.
Yeah.
And so that
So nowhere else in the budget do we have for capital, community,
Well,
for this kind of money.
There's some small places projects that are outside of the infrastructure bond that are we're paying Gartley and Dorsey out of engineering services that may be in Mike's budget, that's in Mike's budget that's separate. If it's not related to Summer Street, School Street, Mill Street, Bridge, Mount Pleasant Street, all of those, or they helped us with the bond, the piece here, the bidding of that.
Let's say next year, we want to determine, let's put a sidewalk up Pleasant Street. Wouldn't that be something that we would contract with, a group like this?
Gartley and Dorsey, yes.
Yeah.
But that's what Jamie's saying. Some of those things would be either in Mike's budget, it would be either in Mike's budget
Okay.
or his budget. And what Jamie's saying, which
So we don't need another line item
Well-
where we can track that separately.
well, it's a question of when do you plan it? What is it part of a construction design, or is it part of a planning design? And what Jamie's saying is it's planning. If we're not building it yet. But in order for us to apply for.
rebuilding it.
Yeah.
Right, but if we're planning to build it and we wanna apply for grants and move forward, or the next step is to go to budget, it would be he's suggesting, and I agree, we should be putting some money in his budget for those kind of things.
Okay.
But I cut that, most of that.
Okay.
Elephant in the room in terms of planning or infrastructure or whatever, and my other hat, or my main hat, library intersection up there, that terrible corner, that's still in planning phase, right? looking at that, the
Right.
possibilities, and I would think there would be grants. Would that fall under,
Yeah, that's a good example, especially because it falls outside of some of Gartley and Dorsey's
Right.
typical fare. Gartley and Dorsey reached out to Goral Palmer, which is a
Right.
very well-known firm for traffic stuff. I call them the MDOT whisperers because it's very hard to go into MDOT and come out with an answer about a future development project. And similarly, for this idea about a pathway and parking that would support future commercial use of CMCA. Right now, it's sort of a sitting duck in terms of parking. That was so speculative, just like I wouldn't ask Mike, what are you going to build 3 years from now, that I wound up getting the quote from a different firm, not from Gartley and Dorsey for that one. That was VHB. But it doesn't matter who, and to Bill's question, you can assume all this work will go to Gartley and Dorsey if it suits them. And the only thing I've tried, Bill, in terms of naming these categories a little differently was to draw a distinction between economic development and community development. And I went through my first round of trying to craft my own budget with Megan and Rick, and I don't think it was very clear how to do that, or I didn't succeed in making it clear. But in my view, community development is when you're going to do something and you don't know who the winner is. You're going to do some granite curb and some street lights, and it's anybody's guess which property owner will finally be inspired to do the improvements to private property because of this work that the public funds has done and increase revenues that way. But economic development is where you pick the winner. We're going to walk up and down Route 1 and say, find me an employer who says, but for the lack of sewer, I'm not hiring X people, I'm not buying Y machine. And I call that economic development. So in the future, we might be able to divide them that way and better tell the difference, better measure our progress over the years.
But to answer your question, Stevie, that intersection would be covered in the planning for the library because that's part of the whole library piece.
it would be. So the expense also?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that whole piece is all gonna be part of that whole.
And my point
whole
that
piece.
Union Street, may or may not be under the authority of MDOT, so that's why we might be reaching out for that kind of help.
Quick question. What I'm hearing you say, that this is a good fiscal investment in future planning for the town, and that this $7,000 could very well help you get grants.
I think so.
Okay.
And it depends a lot on political stripes, what the role of government is. But to the extent I can balance it with the nuts and bolts stuff that I know I need to get done, I'm looking to do a little bit of planning on spec.
Keep in mind that the items that are in red are the ones that I cut that are not my favorite places to cut. They're not cuts I
This is
made.
one of the things that we could say to the voters, this is,
Yep.
has a very good return on investment. This is another reason why you should exceed our spending authority under LD one.
Okay. Now, I want to move up one line. I gotta read it across, 3060. You've got 6,500, or 6,300 in here, and you're talking about Bill Napower not to exceed $5,500 to consult on the Route 1 sewer extension.
Right. I had that in my economic development hopper. So in other words, with a consultant relationship, not with an engineering firm, but with McKed.
Yeah, I know.
We'll get.
But what I'm asking is, what is our appetite really for even thinking of extending the sewer again while we're just paying off the current extension?
Yeah, I left it in.
And we have nobody chomping at the bits here.
I simply left it in because I felt that was your, that I sort of had direction from you that that's where you wanted to go. That would be the next step, and the next step is, in the conversations we've had from the sewer commissioners, when you had your sewer commissioner's hat, is you wanted to move that forward, so that's why that got
I'd agree with
left
that
in.
assessment, that we kind of gave him the feel
Yeah.
that if we could move forward with it, we would.
But
And
again,
it
that
seemed
was
like,
before we hit this LD1 issue.
for sure, but it also seemed like keeping the feelers out for people that would help us get those grants if I had, but for sewer. And so maybe that keeps that potential open, I don't.
Did we do that second sewer report, the second engineering report?
We got the high level.
Right,
I
that
thought.
went all the way down, didn't we? Did we get
You mean
that?
survey work?
Yeah.
Survey work to go up the hill?
Yeah, to go
To go up
all
the
the
hill?
way.
No,
Wait, no,
No, to,
no.
to connect.
we're
us
working
with-
on that, that's a different piece.
That's still
That's still in the works,
process.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, the question is, where's that money coming from?
That
When
comes
have
from the
we-
sewer.
Right, but
comes from
we're,
wastewater.
but that's still moving forward, because we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, we
I
haven't
Oh,
talked
yeah,
about it in a while.
that has,
In a
that is
long,
moving
long
forward.
time.
Yes, that is moving
But
forward.
if that's moving forward,
That's in the
it
way.
kind of
Yeah,
makes
we haven't,
sense
we just haven't gotten
to
the
have
report yet.
the Bill Napower
Yep.
part of it going forward too.
Okay,
I-
well, we
that's
can
why I wanna
discuss
make sure
that
that-
next week.
well, I just want to make sure we're still going.
And if that turns out to be a lower priority, you know, we haven't changed the names of these lines.
Yeah.
We could very well make that consultant be the one that helps us with one of those other grant projects that I was telling you about.
Well, actually, that 5,500, because it's sewer, should be in the wastewater budget, and not in this one.
Well, the 5,500,
The part for Bill Napower
Oh,
for
yes.
McCann, or whatever it is.
it was, it could, it was left in there because it's economic development, and it was not, I mean, it could go there,
Yeah.
but it was left in, it was left as part of economic development because it was going through Jamie's office.
Okay. We can discuss that
But we
next week.
can, you know, that would be a place to shift over and get the money back
Yeah.
in for the other.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd have to work with Nate, correct?
Mm-hmm.
John had a question back there. Did you
Yep,
get it
please.
answered?
Please, please.
No. So Jamie, if we've got an opportunity, you know, like occasionally, well, not even occasionally, frequently, you come across grants that if we move quickly on them, we can essentially get a fairly significant size of, we can get a very significant amount of money coming back. We have a high probability of success. Do you have, would this, not having this funding, would this prevent you from going after some of those? And is there any other funds that we can allocate to give you authorization to do that, if that were the case?
Quite honestly, I think Rick has left enough in here for those fast, pull your hair out, let's get this new source of funds. Because ultimately that just comes from me dropping everything and doing it. But what I'm looking for, and it goes to your question, Bill, about shouldn't this be in the sewer budget? What I'm looking for is to get myself and the town in the habit of longer, slower projects.
Okay.
Where, yeah, we're gonna have a really high success rate when that grant round comes around 18 months from now, and we already know what we want and the competition doesn't. That's where I'm going with this other type of professional services. And so last night, Catherine Rand of MDOT quoted us a 2 to 4 year process for planning, you know, any kind of changes to the configuration of 17 and 90. I think the town should not be looking at itself and say, oh, we can't work with MDOT. This is too hard. There's absolutely no reason that your goal should not be a rotary or a roundabout or just, you know, there's a lot of right-of-way there. The town owns land next to it. There's reasons to continue working on a long-term design, and there's reasons why it's absolutely impossible for the Public Works Director and Gartley and Dorsey to be looking at that on a short-term basis. We need looking into long-term projects.
Okay.
I got a question.
we're like an hour behind schedule here. Unless you want, you're
Mine
comfortable.
was,
get the
mine was
questions,
just
yeah.
a super quick acronym. Sorry, it's just a quick acronym. In your supporting budget information, line 3040 on the legal fees, right near the end, for example, did not budget for IRU.
The indefeasible right of use agreement, that's for the fiber project.
Okay. I'm still confused, but
Yeah.
it's a good confusion. Moving forward, Helen.
Yeah, line 7410, mapping, what's that all about? You had wanted 1,000, Jamie?
Yes.
What's,
With the available funding, I wasn't able to create the new zoning map. You know, we're working with 2013 edition, and there are some inconsistencies with it, and I just want to be prepared using this year's funding and next to do a better job of the zoning map. And that might mean, other mapping projects, but what I'm focusing on is the tool that we need to do code interpretation, and that we want outsiders to be able to see and understand. It's just a better quality zoning map.
so this is software that you need?
No,
do- or-
this is most likely Mike White of a GIS consultant at $100 an hour.
Okay. That's right. I didn't see anything else.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't in his,
That's
no,
it?
wasn't in there.
You ready for Midco Solid Waste?
Yeah, where's Jim?
He's supposed to be here at 6:45.
Yeah, no,
Did the heat go
typically,
off?
we don't have Jim
Tracy-
here typically,
Tracy.
right?
Did the heat go off?
Yeah, usually he is.
We didn't, you told him last year he didn't need to be
Yeah, well,
here.
then it's probably off, because I'm
Oh,
cold.
okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
we
we've
didn't
got
have
our
him.
two
Yeah, we got us.
phenomenal
Oh,
liaisons.
where are they?
Page 127.
Are we going to 120?
Ah, she's gonna do
Yeah.
the heat.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Let's do this.
It's right at the end of Public Works.
I'm usually not
So,
cold.
I mean, it goes,
No, it gets very cold in here.
Yep.
No, the heat
Thank
goes
you,
on
Jamie.
every 2 hours.
Oh, he's staying. You're staying.
I just
You're
feel
staying.
planning and community development. It's so, he said, looking down the road.
Right at the very last
Yeah,
page of
should
Public Works. There you go, you got it. That's it. Yeah. It should be sanitation.
He does it.
Yeah, but
Really impressed with him.
that's not Midco Solid Waste though.
Yeah, but it's in there.
Whole damn line.
yeah,
Yes.
It's
On the-
Look under
other
contractual
contractual.
services.
yeah, the contractual
Other
services.
contractual services, okay.
Yeah.
Setting.
Page 127.
There's not much we can say about that.
Nope.
No, that's why we don't typically have
We already
Jim.
approved that budget, so it's done.
Our county,
Right,
Yeah.
finance is way back towards the building.
we have to pay for this, cool.
How about we skip over mine and do mine at the end, so Linda can go.
Oh, yeah, you wanna do, Megan's suggesting we skip over finance and do town clerk, tax
Well,
collector?
we don't have, you've also skipped
They're
Conservation
not here
Commission.
either, so can we go to
Okay,
town clerk, tax collector, so
okay.
Linda wants to leave, she
Oh,
can?
okay.
Just look like we're in time.
Really?
Oh, you don't?
Just skip
Well-
over a few things.
Yeah, oh, okay, so
We're-
we can stay with the schedule
early.
then. So let's stay with the schedule then.
Okay.
So let's stay with the schedule, we'll go to finance, that's way back
What are we
at the
going, where are
beginning.
we going?
Finance.
Make up your mind. I'm confused.
Okay.
73.
Well, was somebody from Conservation gonna be here?
No, I don't think so.
Then why don't we just cover them too?
We're gonna stay with the schedule, Linda's not gonna leave, so,
Well, conservation was after sanitation.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
where's
we're missing
conservation?
both sanitation and
Where's-
conservation.
So where's conservation?
Right in the, well,
It's
Hold
the
on.
math.
where are we actually
It's how
going
you
here?
figure.
Conservation.
We're going to
Because you're getting two
conservation on page
components.
After the
135.
library.
Where's the nearest bar?
There's not one next door anymore.
They're closed for now, okay,
Can you talk about LD1 again?
okay.
Oh, I don't believe I
Let's,
said that. Okay, so we're going to conservation.
Yep.
There isn't one, ma'am, but we have a bottle coming.
Okay, and I see that Bob Kennedy attached all kinds of information about doing water testing.
Yep.
And that's derivation for the numbers in here.
Right.
Where were the trees gonna go?
They're under capital, land improvements, capital
Yeah,
improvements.
you know, my
I-
question
I-
is, where were you gonna
Where
put
are we
them?
actually gonna plant them?
Boy. Oh, I know where that is. That's, remember we were talking about, I believe this is where we're working with, Aldermere Farms,
For the
Erickson.
tree canopy.
Right, the tree canopy grant project.
That's
It's,
through Parks Committee though, right?
is that what this is?
I don't know. That's,
Related to tree canopy, it's the one where.
Oh, okay, this is the
We're
map.
gonna start a little bit of our own nursery for our own
Right.
project.
Right.
Yeah, that's through, that is through
Yes.
Ariston.
Working with Alderman.
Aldermere.
Yes,
Oh.
and that's not the tree canopy grant
Yeah.
that Parks is doing. Yep, you're correct.
Okay.
So that's to put, some- to start it's for a seedling project, to start getting them, they're gonna plant and get trees to a size that we can transplant them. Initially, we'll be buying some trees that are at a larger size, so we can start the tree planting program. But the hope is that over time, in the next 3 to 5 years, that they will have enough stock on site to be able to replenish that over time at a much more affordable rate, and they'd be trees we had planted here and were grown locally and then could get replanted.
Am I correct in this program is the one that we're doing in conjunction with Camden as well? And does Camden have?
No, we're not doing it in conjunction with them.
Or
It's similar to their.
It's similar to them.
Copied their program. The only difference is we'll be planting our own trees rather than buying them.
Oh, okay.
We'll be buying them to plant and grow up to bigger trees, and then people can get them from us. But it's a
Okay.
very similar program.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. How do we equate Bob's sheet back to what you have here? Yeah. The
Yeah.
water monitoring proposed budget. Like he comes out for a total of 59, 28, 80. And I don't see anything that adds to that, but he has other expenses, which I'm
Nothing
assuming
matches.
is the
this bu-
5725 line, which is 2,800, but he listed at 2,880.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this budget was, I'm not sure, these numbers are the numbers I got from Ken. What pages is his
It's
stuff on?
towards the end. They're not numbered.
Oh, they're not numbered? Conservation Commission.
They all look so similar.
See how nice this would be if we could write what the conservation does.
Yeah, these don't even come
Yeah.
close to adding up.
No, so this might have come in after did this come in after the fact?
He got a grant. Isn't there a
So,
grant associated with this
All
whole
we
project?
received for the Conservation Commission is this one sheet. We didn't receive any other expenses, we didn't
Yeah.
get anything.
Do you wanna wait on this one and Ken's not here tomorrow?
Ken's not here, well, Ken will be back next week.
That's kind of late.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these are a lot of different numbers, and the total is almost $6,000 just for this.
Yeah.
And then you
So,
would have to add the $1,500 we have in trees.
Isn't it gonna be offset by a grant? Am I wrong in thinking
this
that they
piece?
applied for that?
No, I don't think so.
There's no revenue showing.
Oh. So we'll realize that grant in the next budget?
Jamie,
This year has to do with
This is
a
what
water
Ken
quality
said.
project that's underway. We're using,
which are
we're buying
included in the
a
budget
gizmo
request,
for,
and a spreadsheet
for
is
testing.
provided.
But aren't these the gizmos?
Ken gave us
Right, that's right,
comments
that's what I'm
about
just
this.
go ahead.
Oh, I
Oh.
wish I had read his comments.
It's
got
right
'em.
at the bottom, it says, Bob Kennedy provided his requirements for the ongoing water quality efforts, which are included in the budget request, and his spreadsheet is provided in the supporting information section of the budget. At its February meeting, the commission discussed the rest of their budget, relatively minor for items for printing, publicity, and the like. The members were supposed to forward their final thoughts to the chair, who in turn was supposed to finalize the budget and get it to Rick no later than the following week. And as of this time, we have not received.
So, but what about these numbers?
Yeah.
That were
They're
in our
inco-
booklet?
They're somehow in here.
Ken
They
says-
can't, because
Yeah.
their
Where are
total is
they?
$5,928.80.
Is it under water quality
Well,
monitoring?
there's four different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of different stuff here.
Ken is saying that it's there.
Yeah. Well, there's,
Must be under water quality monitoring and under supplies.
But it can't add up,
It's not adding up.
because the whole budget is for $6,500 with the $1,500 for the trees, and this piece of paper is $5,928. So these numbers that we have from the commission, whenever they came in, don't seem to have anything to do with the numbers that are in the budget.
You've got $3,200 in there for water quality monitoring, under other contracted services. And then you've got $2,800 in there for miscellaneous supplies. And that is for,
But, yeah.
Okay, the request that Bob Kennedy put in for what I read was water quality monitoring, is $3,048.80.
so that's 3,200.
That would be the equivalent of the 3,200.
The 2,800 is his other expenses.
Yes, and that is what's shown as, where'd it go?
That's the materials that they need for it.
Miscellaneous supplies?
Oh, yeah, that's what I would equate as
that's
miscellaneous
miscellaneous.
supplies. So,
Jamie,
So it's there.
yeah.
Ken says it's there, it's there.
grant reimbursement.
Oh, I see what the problem is.
2015.
Look under capital items. Land improvements.
It's not showing.
Line, the line from the department head says 0. The line from the manager says 1,500, but the sum
It doesn't
in
add
both
up.
cases
That
are
changed-
6,580.
That changes your total to $8,080.
Yes,
How
now,
come, why did that
That
happen?
makes more sense.
I don't know, probably because those were all
Yep.
zeros before.
There you
Oh.
go. Good job, because it
Yeah.
didn't add up.
okay,
So
now
this
we
is
can move
fine.
on.
But the number is higher.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's because of the 1,500.
That's because
that
this didn't get
he's
added.
put in, so, okay,
Probably because all of these have been zeros.
Practice.
okay.
So what's the number again?
$8,080.
That looks right.
That's much better. That makes more sense.
Bob Kennedy's in Florida.
Okay. Are we done with conservation?
Sounds like a plan.
Finance?
Okay, let's go to finance.
Is there gonna be a bathroom break at some point?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Right over
passed,
there.
we passed the 2-hour mark.
even the heat gave up.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm going too far.
Okay, come on. Gotta find the right
They're,
page here.
yeah, but they're pretty tight up there. It's kind of hard to just get at. Legal fees, reduced.
Find the right page here.
173, 74.
Here, I got it. I'm back to it now, okay. So he had a,
So in this budget, you'll see down under the supply line, one of the things that we've done this year in our budget is we've decided to just have some semblance of consistency of how much we were gonna be putting in the budget for computer maintenance, and just we initially thought we were gonna put in $300 per computer for maintenance, and just if a department had 3 computers, that would be $900. As a way to get, to get the LD1 number down, we reduced that number to 200, correct?
Correct.
And so you'll see some of that change, so some computer supply line went down, so this had some minor changes in reductions in those lines. I removed a bookcase in that office. But computer maintenance, yeah, so that's where it went down to 300, right?
Yep. So the idea is to give us a benchmark, because computer repair and maintenance across the board seems to have been overspent for every budget. So if we start with 200 across the board this year and then reassess how that works out for this fiscal year, and then we can revisit that next year.
okay.
It doesn't take much if, at $85 an hour to chew through a couple $100.
And you're talking line 3610.
Correct.
So 200, but it's 500 or 300?
I have a computer and a half, because Carrie and I share an assistant, so we share her expenses. So for,
That means-
200 times 1.5.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm thinking
Sorry.
300, yeah. Don't
I
just-
know, it's okay.
Yeah,
You found the big one.
Okay.
Yeah, you found the one we needed to find.
Okay. Thank you.
And you see some changes, there's bond counsel that went down considerably, because initially, we had thought we were gonna have to have more bond counsel than we needed. But, so we pulled that down because if we do a bond, it wouldn't be until the next fiscal year, correct?
For the fiber.
Right.
So that 10,000, I was including the fiber and the rest of the costs that we have for the infrastructure bond and the library. So we were considering the need for bond council for 3 events, where now it's really only gonna be 2.
And if we needed one, it would be in the next fiscal year.
Correct.
Question?
Okay, go ahead.
In your supporting budget information, that 3920, plan on attending more trainings offered by Maine Finance Association, et cetera, considering you're not new at this job in this field, but new in this role, are we providing you enough funding for you to get the training you feel necessary to get you where you need to be?
For this upcoming year, I do. MMA trainings are fairly inexpensive. In the past, we haven't really participated in the Maine Government Finance Association, so that will be new. So I don't really have anything to judge that off of yet.
And you'll notice when you go up to the personnel services, there's a line there for, we are providing a stipend.
Yep, no, I knew that.
Right.
That one made sense to me.
So-
it was more, because I know that or I'm assuming your college is general to finance, and I'm wondering,
Correct.
just these specific trainings,
Right.
how beneficial would that be for you
Right.
in your position?
Right.
Okay.
But if you think it's good,
So
good.
getting a lot of training as it is. Yeah, I'm sorry, Helen. Yes, go ahead.
No, just quick question. Year to date on line 3850, the printing went way up and now it's back down. What caused that spike?
So, envelopes go in there. We've done a huge W-9 mailing to all of our vendors. That was a lot. It was over 1,000 mailings. So we purchased the envelopes for that. It's business cards. Our W-2s, 1099s, all of that comes out of there. We issued more 1099s this year than we have in the past, so that increases our cost.
But you expect that was just a spike because of changes that went on in the
Correct.
office and now it'll be back down?
Yep.
Normal, okay.
I want to go back to the bond council legal fees. Are we expecting to spend any this year?
Yeah, as soon as we hear back from the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, which is sometime later this month, then our legal fees for the infrastructure bond will kick in.
Oh, okay. And so that'll chew up that 6,000.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All of it, or does that leave any in reserve?
I would imagine that it's gonna take all of it.
Figured, okay.
Okay. Other questions?
All set on finance?
Nice job.
Thank you.
Where are we now? Town clerk.
Town clerk. Now we're up to Linda. Where is she?
She's
65.
back this way.
We did do mid-consolidated, didn't we?
Yes, yes.
So we don't have to
Town
worry about
clerk.
it. Did we?
Yes.
Did we just say that we have to pay it? and that's
Yeah.
it?
We gotta pay
Yeah,
it.
so we did that. So I don't have to worry about going back to that.
Are you the only one that didn't get cut?
There's not a lot to cut.
She's pretty frugal.
No.
There's not a lot to cut there.
Well, Ken's got a couple questions here.
Wow. I do have a couple
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah, there's not a
The
lot to cut.
retirement, he's got a question on why the big jump in the main PERS.
So Maine PERS for this current fiscal year was only budgeted at 4.3%, where in reality it's 5.6%. And the upcoming fiscal year, starting July 1st, it will go up to 6.5%. So in reality, in our budget, we're taking a jump from 4.3 to 6.5.
Is that of our doing, or is that coming down from?
Nope,
the
that's
state?
what Maine PERS
Yeah.
dictates how much we contribute and how much the employees have to contribute.
So I have a question about, this is an election year, and we already had lots of fun on Sunday up here, because it's a presidential election year. So is that enough money for your election wages, ballot clerks, and any of the other things that are related to it being a presidential election year?
I think we bumped it up, correct? Didn't we, Linda?
We did bump it up, and I'm comfortable with it. Most of my ballot clerks volunteer, and those that do get paid are minimum wage. So the reason I bumped it up is because what I'm probably going to do is have somebody come into the office and help put in absentee ballots, and to teach them how to put it in the computer system, so, because that gets overwhelming.
Yeah, the
And I'm
number,
thinking this year it will be.
yeah.
Well,
The ad-
usually I do it after hours, and I come in weekends and do it, and I really don't.
I didn't realize until Linda explained to me the amount of time it takes to deal with an absentee ballot as
Absentees, yeah.
opposed to just having somebody come in and vote. It's, you know, it's a lot of extra time, a lot of
Just
extra work.
ripping the envelope open, unfolding
There's
it.
a
and
lot of
feeding it
record
through.
keeping, a lot of, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's
So
so many
that'll
more
come out of
steps.
that line, the 2230 for election wages, ballot clerks.
Yes.
So to be able to bring in an extra person or two extra people the day
Few
before
hours.
to do that, okay.
Ken raises the issue, and I've got it as well, on the amount for the excise tax, R-109. I know this is a debate we have every year. Right now, we're running, if he ran his numbers and extended it out, that we were gonna end up somewhere around 778,000 to 798,000. Would be his projection, and we've only put in 710. Now, I know we had a discussion last year about, you know, what we were gonna put in.
I always put in conservatively low. Linda does the same thing. If you want that to go up, feel free.
We did put it up a tiny bit.
It's something that we need to think about, so we
Yeah.
can discuss it
Oh,
next
absolutely.
week as to where we think it should be.
And the further we get in the budget process, the more information we have about the data that we have going forward. But, you know, excise tax can go up and down, you know. It is a gamble, but it may be a gamble that's worth taking.
The question is how many people have now bought the new cars? And so that pent-up demand from 2008 to 2013 has been absorbed.
Yeah.
You know, there's the question, so.
You
Do we
need
have
to
any other
attract a
questions?
new car dealership to town.
You what?
You need to attract a new car dealership.
That'll, yeah, there you go. Push those President's Day sales.
We've got a really nice place right up the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Maybe starting, it's a myth.
No?
I guess the only other one was still back to the election supplies, 5715. You bumped it up by $50, but, is that gonna be enough?
She does her own bacon.
I know, well, yeah, that's why we volunteer when we can.
But that has nothing to do with election supplies in reality. That's the cards and things I have to have for the applications. And they're like maybe $35 per 100.
Okay,
So
just make sure you have
that's-
plenty on hand.
I already have
Okay,
a few hundred on hand.
okay.
I have a question about health insurance. You're the only one I see that has a reduction in health insurance costs. What is the reason for that?
Change in personnel. Change in personnel. Their election costs.
And one of my employees does not get health insurance through us.
Okay,
We good?
I guess we're good.
Anything else?
Wow.
Hey, we're ahead of time.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Moving along.
Was
there
public,
A
public
general
hearing
request to take a?
Yes. Yes.
towards the end?
You gotta hit the table.
No, I don't. We're not in a meeting.
After the West Rockport Fire Station.
That's my next trip.
Oh, yeah. there it is.
This is not gonna be pretty.
We hire a moderator for.
I didn't think. I'll get my foot out of your way.
Town
I'm teaching my
meeting?
grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it is?
I really didn't.
For at least 2 elections,
I did,
primary
yeah, I
and
was-
presidential.
Yeah, we have to have a moderator.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a requirement.
I
That's
can-
the first
Zero
thing that
hours
gets
now.
voted on Tuesday morning, is to elect a moderator.
For
They do it
just
at
town
like
meeting.
8 o'clock.
I was gonna ask.
Look,
what
it's
the-
all a town meeting,
Sweater, so we don't step.
okay? The vote that's coming up in June, 2 days of town meeting.
That's pretty, yeah.
Tuesday for the secret ballot. First thing they do is elect a moderator. 8 o'clock on the sharp. Linda will nominate somebody will second it, they'll take a vote. It'll be Brenda Richardson, just like it always is.
Thank you.
They will go through the day,
New car smell in
and
the
at
spring.
8 PM, they will adjourn the town meeting.
Yeah.
Then they do all their counting, and then 7 PM on Wednesday night, we reopen town meeting upstairs in the Opera House. And that's where you see the moderator.
Yeah, yeah.
And that'll probably be Bob Duke.
I figure.
Yeah. But by law, we have to have one.
I did not realize that was a legalite. All I was
And it did warm up in here. Turn that heat back on, we're all much better. Well, it's every 2 hours, it turns itself off.
I did.
Three-way race.
Anybody who went to Farmington, this is what we live. If you like the pattern, we could. You'll have to talk me to some hands. Cause I made, most of my yarn is about that way.
I think that's just the general consensus.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she bought really nice stuff. She made a very good choice. I didn't have to go, no, she
I was really
immediately-
careful about my
she
choice.
very immediately picked out something beautiful that's well made and. She has good taste.
Sad for the party, but then again, they deserve it.
That too, yeah. Colors are good too.
It was a nice pastel rainbow.
Hands come
Say, Bill.
rainbows like that. They're really
What's Conservation Commission?
No, thank you.
It's an orphan.
Oh, but they're beautiful.
What?
Conservation Commission is, it's about infrastructure and public works. It's not really about culture. Maybe that's the problem. Nobody speaks for the Conservation Commission. But it's all about what's coming out of the pipes at Goose Beach.
Yeah.
You haven't been here all the years that Ted talked.
Okay.
It is a lot more.
What is your email?
Mine,
Your town email, yeah.
finance director. At town,
Yeah, town.maine.us.
no,
or-
dot rockport, dot me, dot us.
Maine spelled out?
Nope, just me, sorry,
USA, right?
dot us.
US.
You're welcome.
My button's going down. Nice little sardines. There you go. That one.
That's why I said it. We're getting cuddly.
Part of me just wants some Pepsi, but I need to sleep at some point tonight too.
Yeah.
You just now getting up?
Yeah.
I do agree with your email to the library committee. I was thinking, I'm gonna be like Teddy's tomorrow. Because we're gonna go to that and then we're gonna come to this.
We're gonna come here again, yes.
We might get a few hours in between to like get some sunshine so we don't get whatever.
I gotta get up tomorrow morning. I went through everything today except the last two things I had. But, no, I never remember. That's what I tried.
Right, so that's what I did. That was the first thing I did. I went, oh, we're gonna leave all of
Yeah, but you've been doing it for
12 years, I think. And then we were here Thursday night and last night with Midcoast Solid Waste. So I'm just moving it. This week, next week, I'm just gonna sleep here. It'll be easier. And I'll probably see more.
Acquire more influence.
Yeah, and that's what we
Otherwise, I never sleep.
I have
The process.
a meeting.
Monday?
No, sometime after one of the presentations, I just get a.
Yeah, the 21st or the 23rd.
Yeah, I just schedule a meeting. Like a nap in the meeting.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's a perfectly acceptable thing to do.
With big infrastructure.
But see, I have to stay for that meeting. You don't have to come until later on after we do our screaming at each other. Well, the workshop starts at whatever time, or the meeting starts, or the public hearing, or whatever the heck it starts.
When you're talking about it, it's a
Yeah, when we're just talking about it and getting all of our numbers straight. Then you won't have to move. You'll just have to keep sitting up there to sitting up there. Unfortunately, I have to continue to sit up here.
Someone put an air freshener in the vent.
Oh, it's been there for years. Yeah, so the 16th.
Bring it all into focus.
Yeah, the 16th, it's directly after our listening to who's coming from the library. The consent, yeah.
How are you doing, John?
You like that everyone gets to see how much money you make?
Doesn't bother me.
Library.
More money than I make.
And then at 7 o'clock, we actually spoke. So.
How much do you make as chair? You get the extra stipend for all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But you're what, at like 1,300, 15? And we're at 1,000?
Yeah. We're gonna have to bump
Does
that
yours
down.
creep up?
No.
After you spend more time? No?
No.
And we're gonna bump it down?
I will.
It is a flat stipend.
Yeah, but I'll bump it down. I don't think we need a raise this year.
Did he put one in?
Yep, he did. You didn't notice?
He came back up.
Because it never goes in.
Yes, he was sharing over.
Yeah, I saw, she must have.
Whose budget is it under?
Administration.
It's under general government administration.
We got
I gotta
the
very
stand for a
first-
second.
Yeah.
Under, wow.
And I wrote on there, no, we can get rid of this.
Oh, thank you.
All I do is bump you in a higher tax bracket.
Yeah, because that $100 or $50 or 25 cents. What is it
It's
that
gonna
we end up
break you,
getting?
bro.
Oh, God.
You're done.
An extra 100 and
1,003.
yeah,
New
oh,
manager, and it's just
$3.
She doesn't speak.
Well, because you get it, I don't know. I'm not even, you can figure it out.
She doesn't talk. And so like, if you're doing something wrong, she's my direct manager. If I'm doing something wrong, she won't tell
What other
me.
kind are there?
She'll go to the head manager and have that person tell me.
Sour cream.
Which is like a little bit irritating. It's like, can't you just tell me, like, can you please do this a different way?
Oh, you can remind me of that, but I don't think so.
Betsy, you
No, you're gonna remind me.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll have learned it by then.
So I'm excited about the potential of a roundabout at 17 and 90.
I feel like I want some too.
Don't hold your breath.
Go out and talk to Richard Rumson.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
See where you're gonna come up with, what did they say the other night? 900,000?
Did they say it was 900,000 for the roundabout?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a.
900?
I still wanna
Missed
know
that
how he's
part.
gonna sewer his little building project, finish it. That's why it's been in the planning stages for 20 years. He has no way to get rid of the waste. He wants the town to extend the sewer at over $1 million a mile.
11 RFQs.
Yeah, and there's
That's
not.
one of the little things Mr. Arido's letter didn't disclose last night.
Yeah, and that's,
Having been a neighbor for
I'm
over
pretty
30
sure you don't wanna
years.
just share that.
I'm ready, are you?
Just kidding. See, I'll just get to
Okay, we're ready to get started.
Hey, got their attention. Almost got their attention.
Serving people potato chips.
Where's debt service?
No, we're at publicly funded
Oh,
utilities.
we're publicly funded.
Where are we?
But before we go ahead, I wanted to step back just a moment. One thing that, going back to sanitation, that Midco solid waste stuff, the contract with PERC is expiring the March 31st, 2018. Next Monday, the 21st, a week from Monday, there'll be a public hearing upstairs or down here? Probably
It'll
down
be in
here.
this building.
Yeah.
They'll be in this building to talk to or discuss and hear about the possible people that we will be dealing with post 2018, post that termination of that contract. We've already heard from three of the vendors.
We have
Yeah,
one
Yeah,
more to
and-
go.
The waste
And you'll hear
management
from
is
where-
gonna be at 5:30, but the public hearing is at 6. And then we are gonna get in, the board of directors for Midco Solid Waste are gonna get into a discussion about what we are going to recommend to the towns. Then followed, I think it's April 4th,
Yeah, that sounds right.
somewhere in there.
yeah.
There's gonna be a meeting of all the select boards. We wanna get all the select boards together. 4 towns, and discuss it and present what our recommendation is, because that's gonna be on the ballot in June as well. It really shouldn't have an impact on the budget, because what we're talking about is the stuff that goes in the yellow bags. And that's pay as you throw, and it's supposed to be covering itself, but I don't know if it's gonna go up or come down, or go sideways or whatever, but those
not
may
gonna
be
come down.
interesting things
Is there any
to either watch.
Any conversation on single stream
There's
recycling?
all
We
kinds
had-
of
Hey,
conversations.
All kinds
Is the
of
Mafia
Rick?
one of the bidders?
before we go into.
Not by name.
I've had
No,
a
not by name.
nagging question.
Well,
Well,
You cut 300,000.
USA Energy's involved in it,
I
but,
said, not by name.
okay. That's, I just wanted to, you know, point that out.
I
Both
wouldn't,
of us are on that board, so if anybody's got any questions about garbage,
Yep.
we can talk to you about garbage.
Another medium money on
We're the only town that has 2 select board members on that board.
That's right, nobody else wants to be on it.
Yeah.
When I saw that it was.
Well, John French is back on.
Well, and,
They like to talk trash.
But I'm not a budget guy, so there's a lot in this whole thing.
Oh, yeah, oh, okay.
chair,
All right, well, you wanna roll?
yes.
where are
Okay, this is
105.
publicly funded utilities, and what we did, one of the big things that has been an issue in the fire budget is the fire protection hydrants was always in the fire budget. So we pulled that, pulled that out of the fire budget and have moved it over to the publicly funded utilities, yes.
You just reminded me of something, and I'm sorry to backtrack a little bit. Have we decided when we're gonna get a fireproof vault, or is that still not working?
We don't have, that's not in the budget this year.
That would be in the,
Town
town
office.
office budget.
Right, but there's nothing in the budget for that this
But I
year.
remember a select board member's initials are TM who was pretty adamant about that being a necessary thing.
So let's wait until we get to the town
Yeah,
office
let's get to the
building.
town office.
And that previously, publicly funded utilities was streetlights. So if you look at previous budgets, that's what it was. We changed the name this year.
So we moved that over into this budget. So it's basically the same number, correct? Yeah, it's been the same number as last year. That's our contract with them?
We are not contracted.
But doesn't it change every year?
It's the same.
We have not heard of a projection of them going up on their rates, so the water charges stayed the same across the board.
So, and so the streetlights, we've done a bunch of work on the streetlights, and I don't think that we've we've narrowed it down to there's like 15 or 20 streetlights that are still in question, and we're still struggling with CMP to figure out, how many lights are out
One
there.
right there, can't you see it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't as easy as that, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, because I thought that the chief went through and found
oh,
that there was a whole bunch that
he
he can't
found,
find.
initially, he found I thought it was about 50. They narrowed that down to, as when they went around and drove around, there was some questions about the poll numbers and addresses on them, but I think it got down to about 15 or 20, and they're still working on trying to narrow that down to decide on. You would think it would be an easy number to nail down. It's like trying to nail down Jell-O. You think it's streetlights, they're there, here's the pole, but there's so many different ways that they categorize them, address them, the pole numbers is.
They even have different street names.
Yeah, they even have different street names for our street. So, one of the things we're trying to do is get them all on GIS, so that we can then put them on GIS, do a GIS overlay, and then be able to track them that way.
Yeah, quick question, Rick. The light pole that was damaged, destroyed at the end of the bridge on Pascal,
Yep.
is that still
That's
in
been,
this year's mark?
they've been notified a couple times about that. Mike, the last time I talked to Mike, he said it's probably they've been notified. They haven't done anything, but they haven't also told us that potentially it may be our street light to repair. We may own the light itself.
Well, I think Steve thought he had found a matching
Yeah,
pole.
you're talking two different things.
Oh, okay.
One, she's talking
yeah.
about the pole that is no longer there.
The pole's no longer there, and no, Steve thought he found one, but it didn't
Okay,
materialize.
so there's no
No.
replacing it, or?
We can't find another one that matches the other one.
Okay.
The option is we could put one up on the
other
physical pole, so there's just a street light there. It's not gonna match the one that's on the bridge that's not lit at the other end. But it's.
And hasn't been for about a year.
Right, Mike thinks that, he hasn't gotten an answer from CMP. Mike thinks that the two lights were connected, and that when one light went down, broke and came down, then it shut off the other one as well.
So when they redo the high sidewalk, would that include CMP doing some work on the light poles that are on it?
On High Sidewalk, yes. When they redo High Sidewalk, many of the light poles that are along the High Sidewalk will have to go across the street.
Okay, so it'll change where the lighting is and everything.
Yes, many of those, I think there's 2 or 3 poles that will have to get relocated.
It's pretty dark along in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the poles that'll have to get relocated is one that we just put in. And it's one that we had to drill in. We had to actually drill through ledge to get it in. But when the high sidewalk goes in, the sidewalk is gonna come so close to the edge of the road, the wall is gonna come so close to the edge of the road that the poles have to go on the other side of the road.
Okay. Anything else on?
Well, just
Oh, yeah.
one quick point on public utilities. Because you moved the hydrants over, but didn't add the numbers to the total of public utility expenditures, we appear to be having a 252,000% or 252% raise, when in fact, if you add the 219 in, if you add the budget in for hydrants last year, you get to 219, and so the raise is much more, much smaller.
Yeah, the numbers don't add
Out there
down.
someplace as to why that was going on. That's all.
The fire protection hydrants, that number all the way across doesn't get carried down to
To the
the
bottom.
public utility expenditure total.
That's all I'm saying.
See, it's 154 here, and you go down to the bottom, it's only 58. Right here.
Yeah, that 58,893 for 14-15 is the total for other contractual services plus the equipment repairs and maintenance line under purchase and contractual services. And that's all it is.
I updated the new ones, just not the old.
And this, if you go down to the capital items, you'll see that's where the fiber engineering was, and that's where it got cut. I am not happy about that cut, but it's what was necessary to meet the LD one. We were informed, we are working on now, there's a potential, albeit slim, but it's worth chasing down, a potential of applying for a grant that will pay for a portion of that. A portion of that fiber engineering may be up to $100,000 if we get it. There's a lot of things going against us in that typically the Connect Me grants go to communities that are underserved, which Rockport is not. The underserved number benchmark that they use is 1.5 meg or less. And our residents typically get, in the 2 to 3 range. The average is probably the, 2 to 3 range, so we're not in the underserved range. And then you can get more service than that through Time Warner. So we don't show up as underserved like other areas in the state. But the chance that the place that we might be able to do it, we might score high enough in that there won't be that many people that are as far along as we are in the process, and we might be able to, get in and say, all right, we've already done the study, so now we need some help with some engineering to move this to the next step. So we might be able to get a grant that will help. On a portion of it, it will still require some taxpayer support.
Rick?
Yeah, yes.
Place where we're better off not adding anything back in. If we can't have the 300, we're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Should we make a gesture and add 50 or 60?
Or, I mean,
Waste
this
of
is
time.
something the select board can do is if you just, do you just have a separate warrant article to, part of the rationale is to kind of gauge public support. And at a certain point, we have to decide, is there enough public support to move this forward? And to answer part of Owen's question was the idea of bonding this piece. The idea of bonding $300,000 or $200,000 doesn't make there's a bigger plan here. And if we want to build if we want to build our own network, it's going to cost us between $4 and $8 million, and that's going to be a bond. If we raise $300,000 to do the engineering, that's roughly equivalent to a $4 million bond, the payment. So we'd be basically asking the voters, are you willing to spend the money for the engineering? And that would give us the ability to gauge voter support, because then when we went to build, we want to go out and bond for the construction. It wouldn't increase the mill rate already, anymore, because the mill rate was already increased. The question that the board is going to have to wrestle with is, are we going to be ready to move that concept forward by June? And, the fear I have is, and the board's heard me say this, but the fear I have is we need to make sure that we do this right. A lot is riding on it, not only for us, but in the state, because Rockport has been out in front of this kind of thing. And if we don't do it right, and we go to ask the voters, and the voters say no, that, all of the competition will be saying, see, we told you so. The Maine isn't willing to do this. And, so the board is gonna have to wrestle with this discussion, as we move forward, to decide, are we ready to move this forward at this point? And I'm not 100% sure we are. I know that John's here, and the technology committee is looking at ways to promote it. It's is there enough time to promote it and get it done? And, you know, that, you know, that's the question. I know it's a high priority for the board, it's a high priority for me, and it's a high priority for many in the state, and many in the state are looking at Rockport. You know, very possibly, Islesboro will move forward. But the argument it will be, Islesboro is different, because it's an island, there's a whole different set of needs, there's a whole different, ideology, and there's a lot of different things that play into Islesboro's decision that aren't the same for Rockport or the rest of the state. So, you know, the bottom line is I pulled it out because there was no way the only way I could match that would be to cut people, cut staff, cut, you know, all kinds of services, and I just wasn't willing to do that. It was painful for me to make that cut, but it was a cut that I just had to do.
Getting back to what Jan said, do we want to make a gesture?
I just want to, it seems to me to be,
Yeah.
if we can't actually do something, it's gonna cost $300,000 to do something. Why would we make a gesture to put something back in the budget when it's kind of pointless to do that? Why not wait until we can put the $300,000 put back in? And if we want to put $100,000 someplace, find a place in the budget that's a better place to put $100,000. So I don't know what can be done with anything less than 300. If it's an all or nothing proposition, then I would leave it as empty.
At this point, we've done the engineering, we've made that investment. I mean, we've done the engineering, we did the preliminary study. And so the next step is the engineering, and there's two steps. The next step is engineering, and then also judging voter support, you know, gauging voter support. And that's what Islesboro did, and I think that's a good approach to, you know, to gauging, you know, if we move forward with this, is there enough understanding on the part of the voters, and will they support it? And, you know, right now, I mean, many of us think that it's there, but until we take the vote, we don't know. And at a certain point, we need to gauge, we need to have something to put to the voters so we can say, are we moving in the right direction or not? The question, you know, I think that what we're gonna wrestle with is, are we ready to take that next step?
Maybe we need to do surveys and questionnaires.
Well, we've already done that.
Stuff.
That's already been done. But it's, you know, but the challenge is the voters haven't been asked to raise their taxes to do it, and that's
probably a
It was
question that
easy
will
to
be
do
on
the survey.
the ballot.
What question is that?
Do you want to move forward with fiber optic for the town?
Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, they were stringing cable down Pascal Avenue. Turns out it's fiber optic cable, and they've been going around. How does delaying the town moving forward give time for outsiders, other companies to move in and do fiber optic?
Because they're gonna cherry pick.
Yes.
Okay,
That's why they're going
that's-
around Pascal.
Right.
They're not running out Main Street. They're not gonna run up Beach Hill Road.
Okay, so
Doesn't pay them.
Yeah, they will do that, and as soon as we started making our announcements, Time Warner started, you know, they did their work, and, you know, that's one of the arguments you hear, in the discussions around the country, is sometimes the work that municipalities do in providing a locally owned option, what that does is force the incumbent providers to provide a cheaper, more affordable and better quality
Raise
service.
their rates up.
Because now there's some real competition. So it does mean that there's more fiber going in, and I think that was that Tidewater? Tidewater, which,
What, ran down Pascal?
yeah, I think it's.
Lincolnville.
That same company.
Same company.
Same.
They've got it all the way down Union Street, too.
Right.
how,
Yeah, and-
how much more difficult is that going to make for the voters to agree to do it? Because those who have gotten the fiber optic from these private companies now say, why should I pay for it?
Right.
And we leaving the people out in the hinterlands with nothing.
Well, there is some, some people have fiber provided by Time Warner. The question is, are they willing to give you the service or sell you the service at a price you can afford? No. That's the thing, is there's places that, you can get gig service if you wanna pay $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's possible. There's places that, it depends on the market, but there's places, I've heard of places in the country where they pay $12,000 a month for gig service.
Okay, so you don't see a problem in waiting?
Oh,
or-
yeah, there's always there's a problem in waiting in that being late to the party is that nobody notices.
Right.
You
That's,
know.
that's why I'm just worried that if we don't go ahead, if we don't keep this forward
Right.
momentum going, then we're gonna lose out to these private companies, and some people are gonna say, I've already got it, what do I care about?
Right.
The people up on Beach
The
Hill.
risk, but there's also the risk if we move forward before we're ready
Right.
and we don't succeed, I don't think we're gonna have an opportunity to go back again.
And the engineering, the fiber engineering, what exactly, for the people out there who haven't been to a lot of these meetings, what exactly do we get for the 300,000?
That is the engineering to provide fiber to everybody's home in every home and premise in town. So that's the study that we had done made a lot of real broad general assumptions that, that surprisingly, one thing that surprised me as far as the study went, I think it's like 18% of all of our infrastructure is underground. Rockport, through the planning board process, has required, somehow gotten subdivisions to do a lot of underground utilities. And so we have a lot of underground utilities in Rockport, surprisingly, compared to Rockland and Owl's Head, we're far above them in the percentage of underground utilities we have. Their assumption was, when they did that, was that there is no room in the current conduit to get the fiber through. They didn't go out and look, but their assumption is from other places in the country that conduit is packed with so much stuff that they can't get anything in. The reality is, they haven't gone out and looked, and they know that. So the engineering will go out and look at all of that stuff, make the determination, is there enough room to get the fiber into those things? Count the poles, locate the actual poles, start to look at how much is the make-ready costs. Make-ready costs are the amount that the pole has to be, that the wires have to be moved on the poles to make room on the pole for our fiber. Or what happens occasionally, what they're running into in Islesboro is, I just had a call about this yesterday, is either CMP or Fairpoint gets to a point and says, well, the pole can't handle any more wire on it or fiber on it, you're gonna have to pay to replace the pole. And then they come up and say, there's 15 poles and they cost, $8,000 a piece, whatever all that work is, and you have to take care of that. That's where, some legislative action would help us and help municipalities in limiting our exposure to those kind of things, because what they want to do is just pass that cost directly on to us. And as a means, number one, to keep us from doing it, and number two, to have us pay the cost of that. Wow. And
So now, to back off from that, and part of Jan's question, would it be helpful to put, say, to split this 300,000 up over 2 or 3 budget cycles?
we need to pay, you need to pay for the engineering, and get it done.
Okay.
That was the part that we broke out to begin with, was the part that we could break out.
Okay.
And then now it's this chunk.
Right.
Okay. So it wouldn't help to put 150 thou in this year and 150 thou in next year, and then
Yep.
pay for the thing.
Because we'd have to borrow 150,000 to pay the remainder for
Right.
this year.
Okay.
So I I think it's one of the tougher questions the board is gonna have to deal with. It's a tough question, and I know how I personally feel, and I think the board is 100% behind it. It's just how to get it to happen in a way that, the thing that worries me is the risk of failing, town managers tend to be risk averse, but in this case, the risk of failure is not just to Rockport. I think the risk of failure will hurt, around the state, because there's a lot of people paying attention to what Rockport did. Nationally, the main model is what we did here. They consider the main model as what Rockport did. So I don't know if you've seen the articles, there's been there was a recent article with Google Fiber. The Google Fiber thing is now looking at doing just what we did, is working with the municipality and helping them to build their network. And it just, so we don't jump to getting Google Fiber to come here.
You're not gonna.
To get Google Fiber is looking at doing a city, which is way outside of their domain of numbers of people that they would like to serve, and that city has about 180,000 people. That's way smaller than the places that they typically look at. So the chance of them coming to Rockport.
Like we said, it's a new model when you and I had talked.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
All right?
You move ahead?
Yes.
Debt,
Debt, where's debt?
149.
Is that in my thing? Is it way in the back?
Mm-hmm.
Just keep scrolling to the back.
Yep. Right in front of the glossary.
801, 0801. Yeah, yeah, you're right. This is kind of a non-negotiable, but it shows you
No,
where our
not on
debt
that.
is.
For some reason, I thought there was, but, okay.
Bottom line is, in spite of, we are considerably lower than what is acceptable or common practice for the amount of debt. It doesn't mean that we have to go out and borrow money and borrow money and borrow money, but we do have some things that are coming up. But as far as our debt goes, we're in really good shape. Our percentage of debt is pretty small.
So if I read page 149 correctly, the maximum debt allowed for the town is 74 million? But we
Correct.
only have 3 million outstanding, and that's 4.06 of what we're permitted. Okay.
So
This does not include the infrastructure bond because it has not been approved yet
by bond council.
by Maine Municipal. That won't
by
happen
Maine
until the end
Municipal.
of March. So by the time you have finished your budget, this will be updated to include the infrastructure bond.
Okay.
Which is 1.7.
How much will that change?
1.7?
Yeah.
1.7.
It will increase it by 1.7.
Okay. I do have a question on line 6210, interest on the bond anticipation note, correct?
Correct.
Are we going to need that?
It was put in there as a placeholder for now until the bond is approved.
Okay.
Could potentially take it out.
Right.
Ooh, there's 5,000 above the 3,000. You took it.
Yep.
So, okay, so we
Every
can,
bit
we can
helps.
still take it out at our April, at our
Correct.
final meeting
Oh,
in
yeah.
April.
Correct. Well, no, I think
Okay.
it's March 24th that the bond bank
Yeah.
will give their approvals of the bonds.
Okay.
Question, on page 151, what is this red number on the TIF line? I'm sure it's clear to some people.
So where are you? What page are you?
151.
The next page.
Did I say 159?
Oh, 151, okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at this page,
Yeah, what is
looking
that?
for a red thing that he had taken out, and, okay, I see what you mean.
It just doesn't have something unless you go up to the next, which is
Fee balance.
Yes,
It means
that's
like-
exactly what it is.
It's fees
It's
balance.
fees, yep,
And it's a negative number.
correct.
I have a question, and that is, a general question. Waco Solid Waste, Knox County debt, schools debt, how often are the percentages that each community owes recalculated? In other words, we owe, somebody owes 37.03%. That's a share. I'm just curious as to the percentages for each town.
Every year.
Every year they're
Every year.
recalculated, and they're
And
based on population?
It's based
or-
on population and municipal value.
Both, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Back to the beginning. Don't listen to me. It's on my computer screen.
I'm going to admin.
oh,
Are we done?
Yeah, we're going to, no, we're going to, you guys.
okay,
I think it's,
very first page of the general government.
page
59 cents.
what are they, there it is.
Wait, 12, 13 was a wild year.
Okay,
I would say we should get rid of our stipend raise.
Geez, I was gonna suggest you took a cut, actually.
I don't know, I might have to fight you over it.
As a gesture,
Stipend,
symbolic.
but we figured it out a couple years ago, we're getting paid like 17 cents an hour.
Well, some years it's like that.
And I think this year's gonna be much
Lower.
less than 17 cents an hour.
You're probably gonna owe
Then
them.
what's the difference if you go to 16, right?
yeah, pennies, really.
The website, you took that out, the 5,000 for the study.
I just took it out because we hadn't spent anything yet. The technology committee has just really gotten up and going. I would like to see that put back in, but that was one item that I took out.
So what you're saying is they haven't spent any of the 5,000
Yet.
scheduled for this year?
Right.
But they will before the end of, before June 1st?
High probability.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
They just got going. They just really got, they had their first real official meeting just last week. Last week, was it?
It was an official conversation.
Official conversation, yeah.
So what were they gonna do with the 5,000?
We're working on a proposal right now that we've got out for bid, so basically it's a sort of a laundry list of tweaks to the current websites that we're working with, including the Opera House website. Terry's now in the seat and has things she wants to, sort of move around on the website. And I don't have much more details than that yet, but in about 2 weeks, I should have plenty of detail.
Okay, and then the 5,000 that you want for the upcoming fiscal year would extend that or add more software or consultants or what?
Well, it's part of the charge of the technology task force we've got right now, effectively 3 separate websites for the town. One's the library, one's the town administrative website, one is the, let's call it the Opera House / Economic Development website. So one of the charges of the technology task force is to look at that and say, is there a better way to do that? Just the administrative website of the town alone is a huge project, way more than $5,000 to get that working the way everybody's gonna be happy with it. So just to do the work to have people come in and consult on it, take a look at it, probably that will easily use up the $5,000.
So it's
Just
mainly-
that's just one part of the technology. There is no real line for the technology task force, probably other than this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought there was someplace else I saw web stuff.
Oh, it's in a couple other places.
But
um,
not this.
But,
There's Opera House stuff.
but this is a place, I cut it, I'm not happy about making the cut. but it's, there was not a bunch of other places that we could get money out of this.
So just to finish the answer, Helen, Technology Task Force has not been in place long enough to know what exactly we're going to need or where we're gonna need it, so there's a little bit of money there that I can pretty much just, back of the napkin tell you, yeah, that's gonna go pretty fast.
But
If
you
we're gonna
should know
do
by
anything.
the time we get around to voting on this final.
Which would be when?
I mean, I think we can easily say that we need that $5,000 back in there.
Yeah.
The one place that I actually added something into the budget that is on the side of, not absolutely 100% necessary, but I think it's important for us to do it, is I put in $5,000 in 3060 under miscellaneous expenses. That is for the 125th anniversary party in August, so that's some money in there to help pay for some of that, the cost of that. So there's money, that's what I put in. Because the volunteers are doing a tremendous amount of work, those of you who participated.
So this would be like for to help supplement the cost of the bridge dinner.
Or whatever,
the-
yep.
A party dinner.
Right. A lot of they've fundraised, and I think they're up around $15,000 or $18,000 that they've fundraised for so far.
That's off to them.
Yeah, right. And
Is this
so
in-
this is the town helping out with that.
Does that include running the dunk tank for the select board?
Oh.
Yes, absolutely, the select board,
Okay.
not
Is that
the
an
town
actual
manager.
thing, or is that an actual thing, or
We're going to North Carolina.
can it be a
No,
thing?
we're not.
I already volunteered to go in the dunk tank. It's totally cool. I have a question about,
Well,
Can-
Rick can stand in
Yeah,
for
and-
Bill,
and
if
I
Bill's
just-
not here.
That 18,000, Rick, does that include, and maybe Linda probably knows that, aren't there some matching funds coming in from some town, like the Samoset and things?
I don't know about matching funds.
No matching funds, but aren't there
Is the
donations?
18,000 number, I didn't realize you were still here, Linda. The 18,000 number, is that accurate?
I'm not sure exactly how much we have in there at the moment, but we've taken in almost $12,000 as donations.
Okay,
And then we've taken in some money for the sales of the items we've had and for the supper, so, but we have expenses out of those, which we
Right,
don't know
right.
yet. And that's one of the things we're gonna do this week, is figure out what our expenses are and what we've actually have taken in for funds to see what the difference is. But I would say it would be closer to 14,000 maybe.
but those donations include some of the corporate donations?
Oh,
It
absolutely.
includes that $5,000.
Okay.
yes.
Yes, sir.
a question about, purchasing contractual services 3005, the accounting and auditing. Can you just explain the cost overrun?
I'm not there yet,
Right
up
there.
there. Which one?
The very first one under purchasing contract
Oh, yeah.
services.
Yeah. Oh, because that last year we had to do more work. That was last year's audit, correct?
Correct.
There was
What?
more,
It has to do with once you take in so much in revenues, you move up to having to complete extra documents in your audit.
yeah, there was more.
And we hit that mark, so we've gone over that. And we actually just paid another bill for 800 some odd dollars, so we'll probably be cutting it pretty close with 11.6.
Thank you.
I have a question, line 3110, meals, so far you didn't budget anything for last year, you spent $34, put 500 back in. I presume that's to reflect the previous years of around 450 or so.
Let me just see. Oh, part of that is for when the board, we haven't been budgeting for when we go to the,
Chamber of Commerce.
Commerce things, the Samoset dinner and things like that. So that's part of it, and then other meal stuff. Like this
Doing right
meal
now?
doesn't come out of here.
It comes out of food and groceries.
Oh, it comes out of food and groceries.
Okay,
We good?
we're okay with this?
Town manager.
Okay.
So you want town
And
manager?
I just go to the next one, of the town manager.
I'm just curious as to how you put a number down as the department head, and then correct yourself as the town manager.
It's,
Second guessing.
yeah.
Yeah. Because I notice you have a terrific ability to agree with yourself over most things.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one cut.
What was this cut?
He's got some
Gave
real
himself
cuts.
a raise.
There are cuts.
Oh, okay. We may.
Two cuts.
I'm always leery about legal fees and,
Legal fees are a tough one.
Can
yeah,
never,
I
you
know,
can
we
never
never,
plan.
we can never plan it.
When it
I
goes to
know.
heck in a handbasket, you
And
just
when it
gotta
does,
ride.
What do you do? Do you just draw into?
You pull in your belt someplace
You
else.
do it someplace else, yeah.
Now,
I love that overlay.
you said we were going to be doing contract negotiations
This
this next coming fiscal year.
Yep.
Where does that?
there's legal fees, union negotiations, which
Oh,
is
there it
30,
is. Okay,
45.
Next
There.
line down.
The huge one that's right there, 5,000,
5,000.
yeah.
Yeah, he second guessed himself again. He thought 500, now he's up to 5,000.
Right.
He just left a
Well,
zero.
Well, look at what happened in FY 13-14.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
that's
was
a
the
whole other
last time.
subject.
That was
Yeah.
the last
No,
time.
but-
No,
We
that
don't
was
want
the
to
last
talk
time
about
union
That
negotiations.
wasn't all union, was it?
Yeah.
It
That
wa-
whole 13?
A lot of it was, but that was a,
13 was the-
that was a particularly difficult negotiation because we had a change in,
It went on for a long time.
yeah, my expectation is that we won't see that this time. There was a change in the representation, so it was like starting at ground zero again. My hope is that we wouldn't see that again.
We could hope. Okay. Why did you zero out franchise, cable TV
Oh,
franchise?
that's right,
Yeah,
that's
see,
a
I have that
mistake.
too. Oh,
Thank you very
good.
much. That's a
'Cause they
mistake.
have been coughing up the money
Yeah.
the last
Yes,
few years.
that's a
We
mistake.
should be happy about that.
That was a mis-
Revenues,
Revenues, first line on
0001.
revenues.
Yeah. That's a mistake, a miscommunication between Megan and I. She asked me a question and I answered what I thought she was asking me, but it wasn't the right thing. So that.
And you even agreed with yourself, though.
Yeah, yeah. No, she asked me the question earlier and I thought I was answering one question.
we
She
have
was
a number
actually
for that?
something. Excuse, that's 30,000.
It is 30.
Oh,
So that's
years
actually a
before, it
mistake.
had been actually going up.
That's actually a mistake in our favor.
Yeah.
There were a few years we got nothing too,
Oh, I know,
so.
but they've been
been all
coming
over
through
the
those
map.
for a while. When do we expect that we would receive that?
We haven't gotten it yet, and I
Yeah, it usually
believe
comes
that
in late.
Stacy has reached out to them to see when we'll be getting that check.
Because it'd be good to know how much they're gonna be giving, you know, because, you know,
Correct.
30,000, 31,700, 32,200. If we get 33 this year.
Right.
Cutting all your computer supplies, are we gonna be able to email you?
Yeah,
Tin cans and
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I can't cut other places and not cut my own budget.
Well, you haven't used it this year. You can go out there and use it this year.
You know, I get accused all the time of, you know, while I'm politically liberal, I'm fiscally conservative. And I get accused in the office of being too fiscally conservative.
Conservatively optimistic.
Conservatively optimistic.
There we go.
Hey, you know, I didn't ask to put back in the tablets for the select board.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Even if we got
We're not
apples.
going there.
You deserve a 3% raise like everybody else.
Do you track year to year how far off you are by being too conservative or too optimistic, how close your guesses have been?
No, I don't.
Just out of your own curiosity?
Our
No.
UFB balances will reflect that. If
Yeah.
we have to take money, if we have to take money out to cover an over expenditure, then that tells us we didn't budget correctly. If we have money that goes in, then we over budgeted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I know. Okay?
You know,
Are we
Jimmy-
good on,
Anything else?
No, that's right.
Insurance.
No, town manager, town office.
Town
building.
Oh,
office
town of
building.
building, okay.
Oh, where is
okay,
it?
we gotta find,
81.
Where's that? Where's town of
Page
building?
81.
Just past the assessment.
toward the back of this.
I was already there
Where
and
are we,
didn't know.
insurance now?
No,
Stevie,
town
you
office
forget somewhere
building,
and not know your
Oh,
way.
page 81.
Must be getting late.
Stevie's what makes these meetings great.
Okay, Ken's got a comment here about a generator which can provide, perhaps a portable unit could be purchased for significantly less than 25,000. That would allow some needs to be met. Then in future years, the budget allows, we could install a larger unit for the full building. That's his comment.
And I would say no, because you've gotta rewire the building to use a generator. So you
You gotta
gotta,
rewire your circuit board.
right, you've gotta go through and redo, so that's expensive. That's the,
But you just want one switch that you flip and it just powers
right, but
the
are you
circuits that
powering?
you have put in.
Right, right, but that's not cheap either.
The reality is that, you know, it would be nice, it's not a nice, it's become more important to get.
Yeah.
It's moved up on the list of priorities as we've consolidated our internet connectivity through the town office.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a risk that it goes down. And if we could get it, it would be nice. But it's also, as we move forward with our NIMS compliance, which we're moving through now, that's an area where there is some grant money out there because of if one of our goals is to move our command center from the fire station into the town office, having that, because having the command center separate from the town office is what you should do if there's an emergency going on. You don't want people going to the fire station, because the fire.
Actually, you said it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Did I?
You said you don't want it in the town office.
We do want it in the town office.
You don't want it in the public
fire-
safety.
You don't want it in the public safety building, because you don't want people going there and interrupting that. So we have the parking, we have everything in our building, so, I mean, it will take some more work, but if that's our goal, is to make that the command center there, then it will need power, and then it moves us up to the eligibility of getting some grant assistance from FEMA to do that. But that doesn't help us this year, because we're still a ways away from NIMS compliance.
And NIMS stands for?
National Incident Management System.
Sorry. National Incident Management System, yeah.
Do we not have a custodian? Do the employees clean up now?
It's contracted.
Yeah, it's under cleaning services,
Oh.
3006.
Oh, okay, yep, I was,
Contracted service.
so we've done away with town office custodian?
Yeah, and we just contract it.
And then can you define for me heating supplies, as in supplies 5352? What are heating supplies, like filters for the oil tank, or?
What number is this?
5352, heating supplies.
It's not a big line, I'm just
Right.
curious. It's really, I don't care one way or the other, I just have never seen
What have we, you
something
can't reach
stated
into
like
the-
that.
Right.
So yes, that's what it would be for if,
Filters.
correct,
Air filters.
correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay,
Things that we will use up and get rid of.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Rick, the reduction in.
Oh,
computer-
to make the vault fireproof?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that I think about is that I've had
Oh.
conversations with my grandmother, and she knows exactly what she's gonna grab if it goes up, and that makes me worry.
Yeah. Oh,
No, she has a book that's like 100 years old, and she's like, if I have to grab something, that's what I'm gonna get.
to be honest with you, to be honest with you, is an item that I didn't get in here, and it was one that I missed putting in.
Do we have a general number on a safe that's capable of holding the things that we would need? Is it a 25,000 or a 10,000?
The whole vault needs to be fireproof.
Yeah.
At the present time, we have a sprinkler and it's over my ladder line.
Right.
So there's this,
Yeah.
And the hospital is in our town, so we have all the vital records for the area.
Well,
And what we had talked about, what we had talked about was the option, I forget who brought it up, it was somebody at the last budget meeting, which, we can write it note down, but what we had talked about was to change the fire suppression system. Yeah, to change that, to go to a different fire suppression
To
system.
not have water come raining down on our.
if nothing else, take the fire extinguisher out of, the sprinkler out of there.
Right.
Because the vault itself has to have some kind of a fire rating.
Is that a legal thing?
The walls are
They're
are
not concrete
wallboard.
block?
No, they're wallboard.
If you were to get shot in there,
Why have
it'd
a
go through
safe
the
door
walls.
if all you have
That's
to do
right.
is take with a sledgehammer and come in the side wall?
Don't go in through the door. Just go in through.
So disregard that.
Just go to Stacy. Go through Stacy's office and just.
That makes my bar comment look better.
Yeah, that would work too.
Why don't we just spell it out how you can best rob the
I
town?
think
But
that,
it's not. The problem isn't that there's things in there that are of high monetary value.
there
The
is-
problem is that they are of
vital
they're
records.
vital records.
They're irreplaceable as
Right.
well.
They're originals.
Do we know how thick
wire
the sheetrock is on those walls?
I'm sure it's some form of fire rating.
Yeah.
You know, sheetrock is fire.
Low.
But it's just sheetrock.
Well, 5/8 is
As a-
considered a fire retardant or something. Half-inch isn't.
Probably the biggest threat to that space is really the sprinkler.
Sprinkler.
Because if a fire started in that space, what the fire didn't get, the sprinkler would. So if we changed over that Tom did mention that. And so if we did change that over to a different type of system, that would set off when the fire, the advantage to sprinklers, these sprinklers don't work the way you see on TV. When there's a fire over there, the
They all
whole,
come
every
on.
sprinkler comes on. It's limited to where the fire is. And so if there was a fire in Megan's office, the sprinklers would come in her office and not go off in the vault and put the fire out. But if the fire happens because there's the lights, there's an electrical fire in the lighting or whatever, then the sprinklers would come on.
That's perfect. Electrical fire, we want water.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah. So the sprinklers, once the fire.
Can you find out, estimate on, one, just removing the sprinkler?
I don't think we can.
Legally, I don't think we
remove-
Yeah, I was
can.
gonna
think
ask
we
about that.
Even though nobody works, I mean, it's a
not a-
safe.
yeah.
So
It's not like
maybe
we have someone doing inspections.
Right, but there's nobody in that room, like, working with a desk or something. So I would find out if we could remove that.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
then-
a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
And then what would be the cost of putting in what'd you say, a halon
yeah.
Or something.
or a dry supply? Yeah.
Megan's got, every time I pick up a budget book, every year, there's a request for more bookshelves because we've got more space to hide more documents, put more things, the assessor's looking for one, everybody's got all of these paper documents, the maps and everything else. We should just hail